Good evening. Calling to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the El Segundo City Council, Tuesday, September 6th. Our invocation will be given by Jim Chaney from the Church of the Beach Cities.
Pray. Lord, we thank you that we can lift up the city to you, what a wonderful city we live in. We want to thank you for all the council members and the mayor. We ask that you use them in a wonderful way to continue the great process of what they're doing with the city.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God.
Thank you. This evening, we're beginning with a presentation on the Wiseburn El Segundo Aquatics Center.
Mayor and members of council, this is going to be a joint presentation by Meredith Pettit, our Director of Recreation and Parks, and by Stu Isaacs, our aquatics consultant.
Thank you very much. Good evening. This project has basically started and then where we are today. Back in May of 2013 was a settlement agreement between the city and the Wiseburn School District. And that settlement agreement basically put this aquatic center. In June 2014, you saw preliminary design options. A couple months later, we engaged Isaac Sports Group to help us through that process and really analyze the different design options that we would have in front of us, the programs that would go with them. Those were presented to you in February 2015. In March of 2015, the City Council voted to move forward with what they called the upgraded option. At that time, that option, the City Council also designated $1.8 million from the Aquatics Trust Fund to go towards that new facility, with the desire to fundraise to be able to construct the new pool complex as well as renovate the aging Eurosari complex. Approved the ongoing consulting services to be provided by Isaac Sports Group to represent the city's interests in the facility design and equipment selection, as well as any future items that'll come throughout these next couple of years as we move forward to marketing programs and other further financial analysis if necessary. In January 2016, this year, City Council amended the settlement agreement to update the terms. As we move through this process, we updated the description. We modified the terms as far as the length of the lease agreement. We also dedicated a $300,000 payment that is to be paid to Wiseburn once they received approved plans back from the architect description of the pool facility to indicate that upgraded option. And what the upgraded option is in the presentation tonight, we'll show you visual renderings of the project, but it's one large 53.2 meter pool with a secondary pool for. We expect that $300,000 payment from the city to go to Wiseburn to be payable in the next couple of weeks, because Wiseburn is expecting those drawings back in about a week or two, because time really is of the essence. We are getting very close, which is very exciting, but we also have some things to iron out, I guess you could say. We wanted to provide you an update on the design, basically where we were about a year and a half ago is in place. Right now, we estimate that this project, the numbers coming in, closer to $14.5 million. So we have to find a way to close that gap. We do have potential options to present, and some ballpark with information only. And what we expect is to bring this back in 2 weeks to actually have that discussion and decisions to be made. As you know, Richard Lundquist and Sherry Kramer have called South Bay Sports, Health, and Recreation. It's a nonprofit, and they have pledged to lead that campaign for fundraising and sponsorships and naming rights. And they have a goal of raising $6 million. According to the agreement, Wiseburn And like I said before, the City Council has designated that $1.8 million from the Aquatics Trust to be used in the project if necessary. So that brings us to a total of $13.8 million today. Like I said, we're looking at about 14.5 with everything that have been made since the original concept. Like I said, we'll go into detail with that, and I'll bring up Stu Isaac of Isaac Sports Group. We'll pull up the presentation and we'll go through the details.
Meredith, can I just ask one question?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and thanks for all of those in the room that were able to participate in one of our working meetings this afternoon to help really sort out some of the issues leading up to this presentation. First thing I wanted to do, progress to date, take a look at a little bit more detail on where we've come and what's the whole group, the team, and this is including representatives of the city, Gensler Architect, ArchPac, which is the engineering, the aquatic engineer and designer, and everybody's been working together. What we've done is really the ongoing engagement of the stakeholders and user groups. Throughout this process, we haven't done it in a vacuum. The team hasn't done it in a vacuum. We continue to engage coaches, outside user groups, and the El Segundo School District to really make sure we're covering all the needs and involving them in some of the ongoing design and update discussions. Then the schematic drawings by ArchPac and Gensler. Engagement of the construction management contractors. To help make this as accurate as possible, the construction management team actually went out and did get some preliminary budget estimates from pool contractors. So we had more detail, more information from the actual construction trade. We were trying to fine tune kind of an ongoing analysis and refinement of that process. And that continuing even today, really taking a look, eliminating duplication, really going over it line by line to see what was excessive, what we might be missing, really come up with a more and more. From that, we really did a variance analysis from the cost increases from the original presentation at 10.6 million, plus some added options we identified at that time, up to the current 14.6. Remember, the 14.6 is actually $2017. We're actually starting, although the bidding will go out hopefully before that. Then we try to identify potential savings, which we'll talk about today. Savings that are generated by design options, value engineering, contractor costs, but also the opportunity to do some direct purchase and provide by owner on some key elements that would save us money by being pulled out of the overall scope of the pool contractor and the general contractor. I know that there were discussions hopefully with the engineers today. So we really don't have a return on investment yet, but there's some complicating factors with the cogeneration system, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. And then finally, with the school district and city representatives, the design project management team, the South Bay Sport, Health, and Recreation, our not-for-profit that's trying to raise the funds. So a very productive, very detailed working meeting today that I thought really gave us some clarity as to Greg Carpenter for attending it, certainly Councilwoman Pertzik. I never know how to pronounce your name correctly. So Carol, thanks for your time and some very good questions. This really helped clarify some of the issues for everybody in the room, not just myself, ongoing project team, the architectural team, and the construction team. Brief look at the latest conceptual renderings of the schematics as it stands right now. And you can see this is the gym complex with major 50-meter pool with a learn-to-swim pool over here, warm water, 86 degrees. And then this is the mechanical room, which one of the things that's been added is family changing rooms, handicap accessible rooms, the city programming. Not a big factor for the school district, but a very important part of the design, and you'll hear more about that. On the building side, here are the enhancements from the last time we met. Included the pool deck, family, and handicap accessible changing area, where the programming use of the city and all the user groups, the storage was really not enough to support all the program needs. So we put into the design and budget a remote storage area outside another about 1,000 square feet to the project. We had to expand the fire lane and vehicle access between the gym and the pool deck, so we had some increases there just to meet access and fire codes. Also, next to our neighbors to make sure that all met code and fine-tuning that, because we just have, Meredith's been working with our neighbors, and Ken Moeller from Archpac has been working on how to make sure this really meets all our codes. We have a line item in there yet. And then we moved the cogen system, which was not part of the 10.6 when we presented in 2015. The cogen, spectator seating, enhanced scoreboard were never part of that 10.6. So we'll talk about that, because that's now been included in the full design of the system. And just another view of the pool from the other side, to give you an idea. A little design here of the schematic layout, what you can see, and for the gym. Now, this is a diagram we looked at and spent a great deal of time on today, because I want you to see, and the colors don't show up that well here, but this area right here, plus this area, this is facing the pool this way, gym complex. This area up here, this is the second level, and none of that is really related to the pool except for the offices, the staff and the pool director. Now, what we tried to do, working with Ken Moeller, the aquatic minimums, the space needed for the pool for daily use. This is not necessarily to be a entire locker room that will support larger events in the pool, but this is what we need for daily construction area, bathhouse area, to support the pool. I want you to keep in mind, though, that we're hosting events, and the joint use agreement that we've been talking about with the school district is that when there are large events, we can use overflow. That would cost us a great deal if we had to build a standalone pool and have the facilities capable of hosting some of the big events that are targeted in this facility. In the same sense, we know as part of that joint use agreement, if they have big events, we know that there are times we will be using some of their facilities that are part of their gym cost, and there are times they may use some of our facilities in the pool. I really want to stress, though, that this allowed us a standalone facility with that potential to share. And looking at the schedules, we know that we'll have to be very careful to coordinate that. You don't have a large volleyball tournament the same day as you have one of your biggest swimming meets. But there's enough schedule, enough time for the pool and the events that are targeted, we'll probably come out ahead in terms of that joint use space. I think of the pool being such a great event asset. The main pool had some design enhancements. It also had some reduction programs. Let's take a look at what was the impact on programming. Could we cut back and not have any significant impact on the quality of programming or the revenue generated by these programs? Or did it have an impact on your operating costs? If we did make some changes, what were those impacts on your financial operating model, revenue, and the benefits for the residents? One of the first things we looked at is the addition of lanes to train across. And if you needed to have some flexibility in the summer and needed to swim short course, 25 meters, or have water polo in and still have space for swimmers to train, you couldn't really do that unless you had the ability to go across pool. You couldn't do that without moving the bulkhead. So this was a way to, with just a small added cost, really make the pool much more flexible, make it much easier to manage, require a lot less time on your staff and less staff people to move the bulkheads. So that was one addition. We heard they wanted 54 meters. That came across from a lot of our user groups, the swim teams that were looking to rent the pool with 2-meter bulkheads. Having talked to them, talking about how we configure this pool for all the competitions, we didn't need that. It's being a little narrower without any sacrifice in our programming or event capabilities. That was an area we were able to cut. The original plan had a 3-meter diving board in, which was taken out. We did add tow ledges. This is all deep water down, and there where swimmers can stand. They're tired. It added about $20,000 to the project. Not a big deal, but again, safety factor really enhances the pool's capabilities. We added soft safety floors to the shallow L of the main pool, but also is cushioned. So that's a great safety factor. When kids are running around, they jump in the pool and they hit the bottom. It really reduces injuries. It also makes a much more comfortable bottom for kids that are playing in the pool, aquatic fitness class, popular. And again, there's a very small increase. We added the permanent seating. Permanent seating was not in the 10.6 million when we did this in 2015. So this was an addition, and we added some expanded deck seating to up and 160 to 200 on deck seating in tip and roll bleachers with the space to expand further. So this is really a summary of where we are. It's 2 1-meter boards, 7 feet depth all the way through, which is deeper. Came up today that, boy, is water polo going to go to a deeper pool, which right now it's 2 meters, 6 feet, 7 inches. So this gives us a little extra depth. It gives us a chance to dive and compete. It gives us full water polo courses, multiple water polo courses, and the bulkheads. So this is a design without the cross lane. This gives you a simple layout of the pool, 10 lanes, but this is what happens when we add the ability to go cross course. So we really don't have to move the bulkhead every time we want to swim competition starting blocks, but we do have the ability to put lanes across, and we can do this while we're water polo here, swimming here. Without moving the bulkhead, you can go right into your long course training. Again, great flexibility, and allows us to actually more bulkheads, and we have a much more flexible pool, which allows us to maximize the rental revenue we're getting from outside water polo and club teams, particularly in the summer. And again, this just shows you with the different bulkheads how you can have a 50-meter, 25-meter water polo. You can set up in the middle, set up here with 3 different 25-meter water polo courses going widthwise that are a little narrower, but that's for training. So a lot of flexibility. And we added the upgrade for the scoreboard. 2015 had a very bare bones. So we've looked at this, worked with the timing system people, and this is what your scoreboard will be able to do. It'll have some great video capabilities. That's an actual video shot from a pool. You can do water polo, but you can also configure this for 2 games at once. For championship meets, you'll have the ability to have names and teams, splits, times. But when you're going 2 courses, 2 meets or 2 courses for a large age group meet, you can run it separately. Teaching pool. We added a ramp. We felt, particularly working with Meredith, looking at the youth programs, special needs program, handicapped. People talk about a 0 entry, but that takes a lot. Allows you to walk in with kids, really, and it creates a great teaching station. So the ramp was added, and that eliminates legally the need for an ADA lift. So the ramp costs more, but it was savings. The ramp is much more effective. Original disinfectant system, UV system, which is it's used everywhere now indoors. Not used that much outdoors, but it's being used now and required by the new Model Aquatic Health Code in water parks because it kills much more rapidly. It kills cryptosporidium, which is the major cause of a lot of your water-based issues. However, it's not yet required. Model Aquatic Health Code, our recommendations, California has not adopted this. It would make for cleaner water, but again, it's above and beyond what the code requires so far. And again, we added the soft safety floor in this pool. So this is the latest, 35 feet by 75 feet, ramp entry, lengthy stairs, and all the things you can do in the pool. But this gives you an idea. Here's the lap lanes. Here's the ramp that goes down. Here's stairs. So you have an entire length of stairs over 30 feet where you can walk in, you can sit there, 1.5 feet here, then slopes to these 4 lanes, which can be used for lap swimming, for seniors that like to swim in warmer water, for young kids coming out of lessons, going into preteen, but also when you're 5th lanes, which really provides a significant enhancement and attractiveness for hosting events here that other facilities in the area do. The construction cost estimates were built on these refined schematic designs and as analysis. A couple important things. Certainly, it's the philosophy of the school district leading this project, and I don't disagree, that they wanted to really make sure with the rapid changing in construction costs these days, as more than enough contingency and buffer in there for unanticipated increases. We do our best to budget this accurately, but we actually ended up increasing, not we, the construction team, and I'm supporting that. Normally in a project, the further you get down the design cycle into schematic designs and then on to further and further detail, you can tighten up the contingency. However, in this case, we used the 10% that was the standard. We added the escalation, and what you're going to see here includes all your soft costs, and then we identify and analyze cost variances and identify cost savings opportunities. So here it is in a nutshell. In 2015, the 14.6 we have now. Keep in mind this 10.6, when we presented and established this budget, these were things that were still to be determined. Cogen and 350, that was the hard cost and some of the soft and permanent seating.
So real quick, I'm just looking at the data that you gave me today. The spectator seating with the ramp and deck beach were already in there at 154,000. So it's actually a reduction. So I'm not, what you're saying is conflicting what you gave us.
In the seating, we did the engineering and we did the concrete stands, the support for it, but we didn't do actually the seating itself, some of the things that.
Well, what's the delta here is you said 54 was from the original proposal, and then there's actually, it's gone down to 90, so there's a net saving is 64,000, according to this data.
There was net savings on some of the, I think that's in the hardscape section.
No,
there was
it's-
some
yeah,
net
yeah.
saving in the concrete, because at that point, we were trying to figure out how do we prepare it for the actual seating.
Okay, so
But it
what is
didn't have
the,
the seats. This
what
was
is,
basically the foundation and the hardscape for it.
so we saved we're saving 64,000 in
On
the
the
hardscape,
hardscape.
but then it's costing us another 100.
And the gates and the entries, and with 300, we need so many gates by code, and the ramps to get up to it. So a lot of this stuff were the,
And then just on the gating, then are we designing this so the check-in, the entry into the pool can't walk into the pool area?
the check-in area for events can be done very easily on the gates provided for the spectators and for athlete entrances. The daily use, that would be something.
Well, no, we're building this huge facility. We don't have a proper, whenever you go to a gym today, there's a proper check-in.
Mhm.
And like an entry where you swipe a card. Are we building that?
It is not in the hard construction design of that. Vince, I think we have not put that back in as an option at this point.
So we're just assuming people are just going to walk in and they're going to happen to go to the check-in?
No, we still have controlled access in the sense there are only a couple of gates that will allow you to get into the pool. When there is somebody hosting an event there, the event will be part of your park and rec staff that's running the pool would be have a table there or something like this. There is no actual ticket counter.
So we're going to have to pay for a person to sit there.
Well, no matter how you do it, you're going to have some use.
All right, we can
Just
table,
having
table that, but that's something that's,
Yeah, just having a
Problematic.
slide system and stuff, I don't think would work in this facility or something that would have a lock gate that you would open like you would be going into a health club or something like that. That functioning manner in an outdoor pool like this.
well, they have it at Loyola, where you swipe a card, you enter.
Yeah. At the university pool. Yeah, they've got some, it's a little easier in a university setting than with the kind of traffic we'll be getting in. So I wanted to go and take a look at what made up each of these changes. Because the hard cost has several different elements involved. Site prep, building, the pool, a big chunk, the Murtha cost here, we moved it out. It's still in this cost, but when you see it later on in some of the details, that's now being purchased directly by the school district. That's going to be an owner cost. So we were able to take that 1.5 million and make sure we've got a locked-in contract on this. The school district does. So that would be that was a way to generate some savings as part of the 14.6. What I wanted to do was go over quickly where this comes from. The site work of 105%. A lot of that came from the need for that perimeter masonry wall, separating with our neighbors. Parking was cost more than anticipated because it included some additional work on some of the demolition, site prep, demolition, enclosure, fire loop, gas trenching, mitigation, code requirements, stormwater prevention. A lot of these things all added up to a big chunk. No one item was very big, but it all added up. And then a new line item of some plants around the outside and the ability to take care of them. Buildings, you can see that the locker rooms, when the pricing came back, was, and again, this is the pool-specific areas that we would use daily, the increase here. We found that the mechanical rooms, even with the addition of the deck changing, the changing family rooms in the mechanical room, actually cost less when it was costed out. Shade structures, we were able to, two we had, and then what was a big chunk was adding the $180,000 for an additional remote storage building. That's budgeting for about 1,000 square feet. That's an enclosed building, but based on the discussions today and some of the follow-up we've had with the school district, just some masonry walls to really make it look good without it being an eyesore, to be able to still serve all the functional and secure needs we have for storage for both the city, school district, and particularly for a lot of our outside users. Had several increases. It's a little deceptive because we changed how the pricing was calculated. In 2015, we did this all by line item. To further make it more accurate, the construction management team went out to contractors based on the scope we gave them to figure out what they would provide as an estimate. So we feel that is a much more accurate than our initial line item pool costs that were provided by Ken Moeller at Archpac, his experience in building. We added the widthwise lanes. We reduced the bulkhead, which saved us some money. We added the safety floors, added the a UV system, upgraded the scoreboard, added some additional competitive event equipment. That is things like more support events like risers for the scoring table, things like this. Added underwater lights, which were not in the original plan. And we added the additional lane lines and storage reels, which I mentioned as part of equipment. So those are the additions. Still has to be a decision. But one of the issues that has come up with the school district is that they've been told that on this site, you could not do the solar that they are planning and a cogen system also. So it is a little that the cogen may not be really the way you want to go, particularly if we can tap into some of the solar that the school is providing, which may be able to be at a much lower cost than the cogen. I added this. All these costs we're talking about here are hard costs. So that is $17. And before we add the contractor markup. So for example, when we talk about saving $300,000 in cogen, or the cost of cogen, when I add all those other factors, it's over the 30% increase. So you're at $8,000. You add all the soft costs that go with it. And then here are some equipment items that were added with, there was no PA system in the initial one. Sport lighting was $54,000 increase. Some of the staging equipment. Contractor costs. This is another big chunk, the second biggest in terms of total percentage. The school district, when they come up with a design on a project like this, they have some standard the contractor to cover everything that may be included in terms of bond and profit and insurance and overhead and general conditions. So we used their number because it's really the school district. And using actual contractor numbers, we could use a smaller number because they've already factored in a lot of that to the bids we received. And this still actually may be a little bit on the high side. So that gives you an idea of the contractor costs that started coming in on these chunks. The contingency. I mentioned we went up to 10%. It also applied to a little broader scope of everything included under the contingency other than the soft costs. So you can see, just to give us that extra buffer that's driven by a much higher percentage, as well as the fact of the hard costs have gone up. So this gives us some real assurance that we're covered for any contingency. That is a high number, but again, very similar. The number that the school district went up 32%. Again, this is all driven by percentages, except for, in this case, there's a very detailed spreadsheet with detail on all the soft costs that the school district has calculated. The pool architect enhanced cost of the pool and the design updates. We also have these engineering and architectural engineering fees, cogen, the bleacher seating, the lighting design and engineering, and just moved over into the pool A&E. So this is all the actual architecture and engineering costs for ArchPack actually has a bigger increase only because these are the things that have been lumped into his scope. There were pre-construction costs, they do all this work. And in discussions today, it was indicated that the school district would work on considering removing that from the budget, which would be a nice saving. So you take all that, you've identified the broad strokes of this, and so you can really look and see line by line all those updates and all the documentation to back it up. Here are the capital funding sources we identified today. Current cost project, based on what we have now, which was the contribution approved, that's 1.8. And then the South Bay Sport, Health, and Recreation, the fundraising component, had talked about $6 million today, up from their original goal of $5 million. So in trying to come up with this, I felt since our meeting today, if we targeted savings of $1 million, I felt that we would be very comfortable living with this. So here are the recommendations we came up with. And then I'm going to show you. First of all, eliminating that administrative cost from the school. And it sounded like the superintendent and a member of the board were supportive of that. It still needs to be addressed by the school district, but that was one soft cost. We used, as I said, pool contractors that actually give us bids. Going over the scope that was submitted to them, we found some duplications where in the scope were all starting blocks, anchors, and some things that were part of the MRFA package also move out of this. So after the meeting today, we spent time with Vince and Ken, the aquatic engineer, and identified what those savings would be based on what we anticipated that the pool contractor had factored in for that. Talked about eliminating the diving board program built in for diving. No diving club has stepped up in this area to want to use it. High schools don't want to use it. It was really recreation. So we said, eliminate this. We kept the deep well, the actual deep area, for what we thought were very important community benefits for scuba classes, for lifeguard certification, which requires for some of the other water safety courses, for junior lifeguard program, things like this. The deep water was important in the so we kept the deep water. We, for those reasons I mentioned, we eliminated the cogen. We took a look at direct purchase of timing systems. We've already identified as part of the 14.6 savings for purchasing the MRFA component, all with the ability to excite donors about having their name attached to some of these big items. So we looked at the timing system and the scoreboard. That's currently in the budget at $155,000, plus some that's built into the purchase price. We know if we were able to buy that direct, get it out from that area that has the escalation, that has contingencies, because we have a proposal for the system we want from the timing system now with a price deposit. So there's ability to do some of these things, to generate some of these savings. Same with direct equipment purchase. And these are things that don't require installation, don't require assembly. It's lane lines that come in, and there's, out of the box, lifeguard chairs, you have to put a few bolts together, lane lines, take them out of the box, and the lifeguards put them in the pool. So eliminate the remote storage. Factored that in, and this means that we can include it in an ad that you could purchase in terms of some of the product. You can purchase a year into your construction. It doesn't have to be part of the initial cost. And then we had 5 practice starting blocks, which is $25,000, which are really for teams to use. Teams can buy. That's not something we need to provide. We'll have the anchors there, but again, it's a savings. Direct purchase of the thermal blanket. Again, it's a cost-saving line, very important to helping save water and save energy. Again, it's something that could limits for any bid situation. And then we said, let's eliminate the UV system. Not required by code. The UV system can be added very easily at a later date. I encourage you to look at a UV system, but it takes, just make sure we've got the piping set up to be able to just cut out that chunk and it just goes in as a tube into the cost. So, taking a look at these, that was savings of 1.137 million. I did all those direct purchases, the savings would still be almost 950,000. So again, showing what could be phased and what could be included in the bid as ad alternates, if indeed, as we hope, the bid comes in a little bit. Question.
Yeah, just a question on the 245 from the eliminate remote storage. How much, I thought the remote storage was a lot more expensive than 240,000.
The remote storage was budgeted hard cost of 180,000 in those documents.
Okay.
And that was just the building. Without 5 includes all the other soft costs that go with it. Because everything we've got in a hard cost has your 3% inflation. It has your 10% contingency. It has your contractor's condition, which is another 23%. Some like 35, 36% that immediately gets added into the costing model. And in the costing detail, you'll see where that comes in. So when we talk about savings of a hard cost, it is really significantly more costs, contingencies are added in. Okay. There were some things we didn't include. We felt there was another savings we could identify that totaled over $250,000. But as I mentioned, main pool is important. We have one in the teaching pool, which I didn't even put as an option, but we like having that ramp in that main pool, again, for a lot of good programming and special needs, seniors, a lot of good access. The tow ledges. We can eliminate these things and even phase, let's say, landscaping, but we didn't feel that these should be considered in this first round of cuts. I listened to a lot of the conversations. Each one of these programming, therefore, it has a significant impact on the additional revenue we're generating because people love the features in this pool that aren't in the other pools in the region, throughout the South Bay and even broader. The landscape and irrigate pool, Madam Mayor, you pointed that out very well. You want this to look good too. It's a very important part of the image of the overall facility. When we talked about this, by the way, there were some items that we could purchase directly, but they're more complicated because they involve installation. This one would involve bidding, both of these. So we didn't even look at those options, but there are ways we can take these direct funding. We talked about the $6 million goal up from $5 million, really being driven by South Bay sports, health, and recreation. One of the things we're doing to help, and I'm working closely with Meredith on this, is provide these done, help them create the story of the benefits of each of the components. Because as we pull out some of the components, we're able to tell a story of why this added donation can help make this particular item happen and why that's good for the community, why it's good for special needs, and link what design challenges we have and the costing challenges to specific fundraising goals. We're also trying to take this out to our user groups because we've seen plenty of examples where the user group, maybe it's 50-meter lane lines, maybe it's a storage bin within our storage area, things like this. What we're trying to do is see what we can identify that we can go to the user groups and generate their funding. So when I talk about fundraising, these were designed by, again, show how sponsors could be recognized, how there could be banners at some of the entrances to the pool. And again, this gives you an idea of the gates and the control access, where for events you'd have a table there with tickets. There is the opportunity, if we have it, we may be able to actually link something more official in conjunction with the concession area, and we can talk that. In this particular diagram, yeah, and I would go back to my old one. I know that there's some ways to have access to the close to the entrance because that's where we're trying to reach the spectators. That gives you an idea of what might be possible in this. So, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell, kind of, again, to summarize, we have a shortfall. I feel that the changes made and the way the cost has grown are all justifiable. The changes that were made and additions to the pool, scope of the building, concern of programming, revenue generation, operating cost reductions. So the next steps is really identifying what we can do to tighten up and cover that shortfall. And again, I feel comfortable that we've added a little bit more on that cost saving. Some of those things may not work, may not get the savings we anticipate from some of the direct purchases. I also want to stress that there is significant buffer in here. The 10% contingency, using the high end for all the contractor cost estimate scopes. What came back had a $500,000 range from the lowest to the highest. We didn't use the lowest in this costing. We used an average. So there may be savings when the bids come in. As Vince pointed out, we know that we've got a target now. We feel we can do something that can get us to that 13.8 million. But real final decisions come when you get the bids in. Then you can really take a look at any more tweaking, any value engineering. And from my experience on this kind of project and with these kind of contingencies, you'll have a chance to really get what you want within your 13.8 million. Any questions?
Thank you, Stu.
So on the cogen, I just want to make sure I understand that, you know, if Wiseburn decides to go solar, there's some question if we can do both. I'm just surprised how quickly we did it for the city, cogen or solar. I don't want to just drop it because they said so. I want to make sure that we've done our due diligence, because there was a big push to do cogen, and all of a sudden now we're not, it's on the chopping block. So that kind of concerns me that this is what the Wiseburn has decided they want to do. So I want to make sure that's in our long-term benefit.
And, okay, want me to respond to that?
Yeah.
One of the major factors that push that is quickly, they know they want to do solar and that you can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole
But
facility.
I feel it's we should do our due diligence and make sure what's best for our city. So I would expect that we would do some research and look into it and make sure that solar from there. But I want to make sure that we just don't say, okay, you know, I feel like we haven't done any due diligence. We just learned today that there's an issue with it, and all of a sudden now it's on the chopping block. I'm not sure if the research is done from the city's perspective that needs to happen.
And
And
so,
then,
Vince, you've had conversations with the engineer. I don't know if you have a follow-up today at all or any more insights.
No, most of it is just
Want to come up here?
Yeah. So the Energy Commission is where we have to make sure.
So we need to
Representatives of the
confirm
city
that,
are
and
in
then
that
we need
loop.
to look at what
I
the
just want to make sure
what the
we're
changes to the
looking-
operating costs are, right?
Yep.
yeah, we're looking at it from our city's perspective. And that brings up, I really would like for someone from our finance department to look at to do an audit of the findings, match up to everything. Is that, I want to make sure that we have the all appropriate team looking at the numbers.
We can have someone from finance look at the numbers and the summary. They aren't constructed.
Just double check it. Then the last thing is, one of the things that still needs to be resolved, or not resolved, but discussed, is the mixed use in the locker rooms and concessions, protocols of who has Trump's rights as far as booking of events. Use of the pool seems very vague, so I want to make sure that that's clearly defined and articulated before we move forward, because I just don't want, well, this is what I thought they meant, come out. So I really want clear delineation and the concessions.
There is a requirement in our settlement agreement that we reach a joint use agreement. So that would be the next step after I think we decide on the design, and during the construction and during the construction process, we'd sign the joint use agreement.
And we know that when we did our work a year and a half ago, there was an actual schedule model that we coordinated with Meredith, with the user groups, and with both the El Segundo and the Wiseburn High School coaches. So we had a real, that you pointed out, mixed use when we have events, particularly the concession stand. Just so you know, the concession stand is in the budget to be built out. with a pretty substantive number in support of that, that hopefully could be refined, warming and event capabilities. It does need to be run, as we talked about, does need to be run by one organization, and that should be run by the city, because we'll be using it much more. Just so you know, when we did the financial mission, knowing when we had swim meets or water polo tournaments in the pool, we knew, even though at the time we didn't know what it would look like as a concession stand, it could even be food trucks for an event. We had a revenue generating a profit of approximately 57 line item in the revenue for any daily food concessions. So if we can work this out, we have an upside when there's just a concession stand open during the day, during free swims, during weekends, during July 4th, whatever kind of things that would be. So that's a revenue upside.
Councilmember Perstuck was talking about was with the gymnasium for volleyball tournaments. Because it was my understanding that we were going to manage the entire aquatics center, but then the volleyball center got added at a later date. Or the school district was looking for some efficiencies that they might want to use our lockers and showers and.
What they were talking about is when there's a big event in the gym, like a tournament, and they have more people that might require some locker rooms, civic locker rooms. Yeah. So again, that I think is something that the joint use agreement provides for that to be worked out. But at the same sense, remember that for a lot of the swim meets, we'd love to have the gym space, and particularly the reception room, the viewing room that's in the building that overlooks the pool for hospitality. So there are a lot of gym, school-funded components that will be significant. You're right, it needs to be
We just need to
more
spell it out.
specifically spelled
We
out.
just need to spell it out. So it's clear and there's no misconceptions going into the process.
And when you spoke about solar earlier today, it was explained to us that there are investors who will pay for the installation. The city would still get a good rate on electricity because the solar is sold back at a decreased amount.
Correct. And one of the things, just so you know, in the outside, all of the utility costs that are factored into the operational budget of the pool are standard electrical and gas and water rates. There is no savings built in already. So anything like that will only be tacked on our design costs, our construction costs, including variable frequency drives on the pumps, the inclusion of solar, the inclusion of buying thermal blankets. A lot of those have incentives and grants and discounts really kick in until you get into the actual bidding and construction process. So there's something that you cannot even anticipate. So we're anticipating in these costs, the worst case, have not factored in any of these utility credits or discounts. We know not including any of those, and I know the school district and the construction team are not including any of those in their calculations either.
So go ahead.
Well, I have a few questions, and I'm going to start with a comment here. This whole project, right? So it started out as a $6 million pool that Wiseburn was going to pay $6 million for, and we were going to pay for the ongoing operations cost of it, maintaining it. And then we agreed to add some features to the pool, events and things, and drove the cost from $6 million to $10 million. I'm just using big round numbers here. And in that, we were going to take advantage of programming and everything else that was going to bring more revenue into this. So this is the first time I've seen this, and now we have a 40% increase. And you've explained it to us, and there's some significant scope changes from what was included in the $10.6 million authorized here. Who was anybody involved with that? Is Wiseburn in it? Are we in it? Who's paying for it?
When you say significant scope, when you look at the pool,
Well, the gym, the locker room facilities, we were going to have shared facilities. We weren't going to have bleachers. We weren't these other them scope changes. They're not.
there are very few scope changes in the pool, the body of water itself, and the two pools from 2015, except the costs have gone up more than anticipated inflation, like the gym spaces, and again, the gyms, the locker room spaces in the building have not really increased from 2015. The cost of those has, but there's not really been added scope to
Aware of dedicated locker room space we had out there, how much space we had. So I don't know the details of it. I wasn't on the committee, but
Yep.
it was difficult to comprehend how we got from 6 million, some escalation got it into the 7.5 feet. So it's hard for me to comprehend how we're managing the growth of this project, and it's on a short time frame. I mean, this is, you're not talking about escalation of inflation on things it's hard for me to swallow that, to be honest with you. So my question goes back to who authorized these changes in the scope? Who on the committee is authorized to do this?
Well, I was attending meetings. We haven't had a meeting in a very long time, but we always knew we were going to have locker rooms and showers, and they went from a standalone building into the gymnasium, which I believe is
Cost
less
savings.
expensive,
Was a
right?
cost savings.
Yes.
and that happened 20, so
That was part of that $10 million thing.
And
Now
the
it's
bleachers, I
escalated.
mean-
That cost is now escalated. So originally, when it was
40%
proposed to move it
escalation,
into the gym, it was supposed to be a cost savings, but now that it's in the gym, it's gone up in price.
but it hasn't gone up as much as a standalone.
Observation, almost a 40% increase, which was up from the original estimate. So we're really more than doubling the initial capital estimate. So I struggle with that fundamentally, how we are so far off. I mean, I understand that we're in a tighter labor market. I experienced that myself in my business, but to this degree, I don't understand. We're missing a part of the equation. We're talking about a significant increase in capital investment, but we have no idea what the return is going to be. So we haven't seen, that I'm aware of, a revised operating budget. And I would think that with all this increase in capital investment, there's going to be more of a return to the city. There's no in my mind. So I'm struggling a little bit with this too. I know this is the first time you guys have come out of committee today, but it would be good to see more information.
And Meredith and I have talked about updating the financials.
Yeah.
And they will look better, particularly, even without factoring in the solar. But we know that the in-program enhancements will generate increased revenue, and we can link them to what the actual cost of those specific enhancements, like the soft floor and the added width lanes and things like that. All costs of the project are really, the big chunks were coming from contractor costs, the added contingencies, the really how the scope of it is managed when the contract management, again, that is, you're right, largely driven by the school district. We've been trying to keep up with that and participating in those meetings and constantly asking many of the same questions you're asking. One of the things that capital investment of the city, the fundraising people have done a good job of trying to keep up, because they've been communicating also and on the increase of these costs. So again, what we're trying to look at, when I identified,
As of last week, this was the first they had heard of it.
yeah, well, they've been targeting the 5 million for a long time.
Absolutely, but they
Yeah.
were surprised. They had targeted the 5 million
Yep.
with the expectation that we would get our 1.8 million back, 1.8 million back.
Okay.
So they, for the first time, came to us last week saying that we had a meeting because they were concerned that there was a lot of cost overruns. So they were not in the loop as well. So let's make that clear.
Could I clarify also, I thought I recall before, give back, for lack of a better term, to the plunge, because the plunge is in disrepair, needs all these improvements,
Well,
filter
that's-
system, et cetera.
You're correct. That's one of the biggest issues, and I brought that up several times today, because if council decides to go forward with this, they have to go $4 back. But what that means is our school district, if we're going to do anything with the plunge, because otherwise the plunge, if it goes down, it's just down. It's never going to get fixed. The school district is going to have to step up in some fashion and invest in the plunge. They can't, but as we've been honest on many occasions, we're really doing this for the schools because they don't have a pool to play water polo in. So the school district needs to step
Well,
up.
the school district at this point can't say anything because they have, till that's done, they really can't do anything. So at this point, I don't want to we're talking about an overrun of 40%. I don't want to push it back onto El Segundo Unified that they're not paying, let's keep the focus on where it's.
Right, but we have somebody who generously, he has, so they're not asking for all that money for us, but we might not ever see that 1.8 again if we go forward.
But when the original deal with Continental Development was they were going to raise the 5 million so that we could pay back the 1 point.
Analysis going back a year, the programming of the Aquatic Center allowed us to move teams away from the plunge, which significantly increased the opportunity for citizens and programs, lap swimming and lessons, and because so much of that prime time is taken by teens. So we also did an analysis of the revenue increases at the plunge. So you're going to have a much better operating picture in your annual budget as a money that, depending on how you want to anticipate the use of it, can help support ongoing improvements and updates with the plunge coming from significantly increased operating revenue.
That's only possible if the plunge is functioning.
Yes.
If it goes down, then
We haven't been presented with that operating revenue.
That was actually part of the 2015 study.
Yeah, that was what was used to come up with we were authorizing the 10.6, where we capped our involvement at 1. We were, that was over a year ago, and this is, first I'm hearing that this is up 40%. So it's going to take some while for me to digest that. I can't swallow that right now. There's nothing out there in inflation that shows 40% in this years of inflation at most built into it. So that just doesn't fly. Something's really, there's enough significant scope change here that I don't know who's authorizing that. So I'd like to sit back and find out how we're doing with more money in this program too. I haven't heard that. So
they're looking for us to have some sort of decision by the middle of this month, because they're looking to go out for bids December 1st.
When could we get a revised set of, financial performance to look at?
That probably will take a week to 10 days.
Okay. That would help tremendously. And then to Mike's point, I don't think this is in the spirit of what was originally intended.
Okay. Now, one of the things that the school district brings up and their construction team bring up
Involved in this, Mike. Segundo has nothing to do with
I'm
it.
just making sure.
is that a lot of these things, when you get the actual bids back, we know that there's so much contingency built in. We are anticipating that.
Not one cost has gone down in this thing from day one.
What I'm saying is that there is a lot of different layers of buffer in this costing model right now, even though the design, and so the advice from the construction manager is that we take a look at where the bids come in, and then you can really make cost cutting that you may need to come up with.
I don't mean to be rude, but I heard the same discussion when we went from 7 million to 10.6. We got plenty of contingency in there. Don't worry, it's covered. And we're 40% over that. So I'm
From 7 million, which was 2013, to the 10 million, there was some significant additions. That first one didn't even have a teaching pool. It was so bare bones, and it really didn't meet constituents and the user groups. So I just want to make sure,
I'm saying those are significant scope changes. Who authorized them?
well, in the 2013 to 2015 jump, that was authorized when from 2015 to now. There hasn't been authorization, as you well know, of some of these specific components that are driving the cost. But the biggest chunks of these costs are not driven by conscience coming in from the construction team and the management team that's been doing the research.
And we've certainly experienced some of that ourselves with RSI. Look at all those bids came back astronomically over what we had construction's picking up.
It just seems as we went through the line by line today, there's a lot of things that should have been part of the original 10.5 that weren't. And how those were missed, like lighting. I'm not sure if the due diligence was done effectively when you did the 10.5. I would surmise, I guess.
program revenues for us in 2 weeks. And I also asked about not building the second pool, and that was a cost savings of only about $450,000.
Well, more when you add the soft costs, but
Yes.
that's what you could do with the pool and how you could enhance your programming at the plunge too.
I hate to make the comment here, but what would it cost to go back to a Wiseburn, you build it and we'll operate it? What would that option look like?
That $6 million price, I don't know if you could even get a 50-meter pool today that would meet the needs of handling 2 school districts. So,
Well, it seems to me, though, that the project scope, be it, has gone up, and we're both participating in this project together, so it would seem logical and reasonable to me that we have an opportunity to go back to Wiseburn, that we have new information now. The project is much different today than we thought it was 3 years ago, and you out.
Several times. And they maintain there are no additional funds for them because they have X amount in their bond.
And they're building a big gym.
What about, can we share any revenue, additional wiggle room in the negotiation, Greg?
Well, all the revenues that are generated come back to the city, and we're obligated to use them to operate the facility. So I don't know that there's that many opportunities on the revenue sharing side. There might be some opportunities on the overall revenue generation side. Questions asked about the added scope. Most of the items that were added to the scope were identified as additional items in 2015, and you've rolled them into the accounting here. You did add the storage building. We've since decided scope that are more about utility or the operations, like the tow ledge. There's really sort of 5 major areas where the numbers have changed from my notes, and that has to do with the escalation of the costs. There were some items that were just missing from the 2000 and dealing with methane issues and some other code issues. There are items that are more expensive than they were in 2015. There were some added items, and we talked about what those were, including the storage building, and then there's the higher contingency. And the city's expectation, when we're going to commit the $1.8 million that's in our aquatics fund as a backstop, and hopefully we wouldn't have to use it, and we'd be able to pull that $1.8 million out and use it for the plunge. What Wiseburn is asking essentially tonight is that the city take that, we're not going to get that $1.8 million to back out to use for the plunge that is going to go into this project, and that the city, potentially working with the El Segundo School District, is going to find a solution to the plunge issue. So I think that's really the major change that the city has around committing the $1.8 million to this project. And it is our intent to bring this back on the 20th. I think it'd be helpful for the council to tell us what additional information would be helpful for staff and Stu to come back with on the 20th.
I think Drew already mentioned what we need to see what the revenue will be. And then I want to make sure that the language in that states that we can start putting, as we make revenue to cover our costs, if we make additional revenue, it doesn't have to stay at that.
That's not going to happen. That's not the agreement.
I know, but at least we.
I'd like to get a legal opinion from Mark, too, in terms of where we're at with the MOU as it relates to Wiseburn, because, again, I feel like, and I would like to revisit that as well.
And if the city were to decide to not go forward, then what happens?
Section, and Mark will opine on this on the 20th in greater detail, but I think if we decide not to move forward, then we don't have any expectation of getting the liquidated damages, and the deal just dies. We don't get a swimming pool, we don't get the liquidated damages, we don't have to spend any additional funds.
And my understanding is the charity that was set up, or the nonprofit, excuse me, they've already received their first payments? Is that what we were told today?
Yes, and they're planning on attending on the 20th to provide counsel in the.
Greg, is it that 501c3, or what is it? Okay, is it directed specifically to that
No,
physical asset?
no.
Okay.
But that's what they've been using to market it.
That's why that this.
But the sponsors they have, some have already signed up for specific items that are at that facility. Any other questions for Stu?
And we need to ensure that the citizens understand everything.
Just so you know, Greg, I'm not willing to give up that 1.8 million to Wiseburn, so that doesn't stay in the deal. We're looking for that to come back. We're not gonna let the plunge out there sit on a hope. We were committed to making up, and it was a good step in the right direction there, so I'm not willing to give that up. No, fundraising if they can plug that gap, that's about the only way I can support this going forward, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and lessons learned for me is just having a covenant in our agreement for the city so we don't get stuck in this situation again, because these things happen. And we are in a historically
Absolutely.
tight labor market, but I mean, that is a huge increase.
And then lastly, if we could just ensure that, and we just found out about it late last week, we really need to hear about it much sooner so that we can have time to either talk about it, digest it, make changes, but waiting this long before the meetings this week is very concerning.
Yes. So I show 8:23, and we haven't gotten into the agenda, so, yeah, pardon? We done. So before we roll, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Persick. Here. Councilmember Brand.
Present.
Councilmember Dugan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyles.
Here.
Mayor Fuentes.
Here. Now is the time for public minutes total. Seeing no public communications, we'll close. Go on to procedural motion. Open up public communications? Yeah, well,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marco Zong. I'm from Southern California Labor Compliance, and my particular, comment is item was a job walk conducted, which I attended, and it had both buildings that are going to be awarded to one bidder. Now, I've heard from numerous people that there was a subsequent walk be bidding on the police station, and Garland was brought in as like a representative or a manufacturer of roofing material to kind of like facilitate that. But there's one contractor that was in attendance that was brought contract with this contract or any other future contracts. And I have here basically a white paper detailing safety issues, wage violations, these things, actual fact. So I don't know if you would
Give
like
them to the city clerk,
copies of
please.
Gentlemen, get one. Anyway, that was a concern I had, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. You don't want to go through a point where you contract with this contractor and they turn out to be not a very good one. That's really my concern, and it's really an informational for you guys as well.
Thank you. See no more public communications, will be closed. Council comments? Okay. Pardon? Yes. Procedural motions, consideration of a motion to read all.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. So I am going to move item 2 to the front tonight, and item 2 is consideration and possible action to modify the El Segundo ambulance transport. Chief Donovan?
Mayor, members of council, I believe Councilmember Dugan asked for this report to be made a number of months ago. Staff has done the analysis, and Chief Donovan is going to present some options for the council to consider.
Before you this evening is consideration of possible action to modify the El Segundo transport fee structure. And as background, this is a very important continuing topic related to the El Segundo Fire Department's ambulance transport program. The ambulance transport all sick and injured patients within the city using 2 transport ambulances staffed 24 hours per day. We are also an approved program by the Los Angeles County Emergency Medical Services Agency, or the EMS agency. Important determination in the County of Los Angeles. What this means is that both of our ambulances are inventoried and approved to carry supplies and medications to assist critically injured or ill patients. That accreditation process occurs annually. And we are also an important distinction to become an approved ALS provider is we are staffed at all times with 2 LA County accredited paramedics. So it's an important distinction that we have 2 transport ambulances, each one to treat advanced life support patients, and then we have the 2 paramedics that ride on each ambulance. Medical calls that are dispatched to the fire department include basic life support, or we'll refer to as BLS calls, and examples of a dispatch to advanced life support calls, or ALS calls. Such calls as heart attacks or difficulty breathing fall into that category. Both of these types of calls require the paramedics to be dispatched to the scene, arrive on scene, assess the patient. We go in on scene, the paramedics perform a full assessment, asking questions, determining what's referred to as the chief complaint of the patient, and then they begin a treatment protocol that will vary. The basic life support type of patients require less treatment at the hospital, whereas the patients that have advanced life support conditions, such as the heart attack or the difficult breathing, require much more advanced patient care, such as starting intravenous access or an IV line intubation, which is a process once throat and assists the patient with breathing, and application of medication, various medicine. As part of this service, the city bills the insurance carrier using a fee structure that's set up by the EMS agent. That fee structure is reviewed by the County of Los Angeles. They go through a process that's codified in the Los Angeles County Code, and they determine what are reasonable prices for ambulance care and transport. The structure, choosing several of the ambulance rates that are appropriate, but also eliminating or not including some of the ambulance fees as part of the bill. An example of some of the fees that currently, such as disposable medical supplies, cervical collars that are used for patients that have neck pain, other durable goods that are used to treat the patient. The billing rates do differentiate between that our paramedics treat are allowed to be billed at a higher rate due to the services that are provided by those paramedics. By way of example, in 2014, the city paramedic program responded to 1,118 patients were transported to local hospitals. That's 58%. The total program cost for the paramedic program that includes staff, apparatus, equipment, and medical supplies was $2.4 were $636,313, or about 25.6% of the cost recovery. In comparison, in 2015, the department responded on 1,647 medical. The program costs in 2015 was just short of $2.6 million, and we recovered $785,742 for an approximate 30% cost recovery. The income was $149,429, and there are three main drivers to this increase. The first one being there were 77 more calls in 2015 than in 2014, $53. There was an increase in the rate structure from 2014 to 2015, which accounted for $23,153. And there was a residential copay, which was implemented in 2014, that accounted. The action of the residential copay was in response to the 2014 strategic planning process, in which the city council was in the end of the economic downturn, and they were looking for opportunities for new revenues. Years prior, the residential off that is spoken about is related to insurance companies in their relationship throughout the state of California. By way of example, looking at a 12-month period from August 2015, medical charges based on those 995 patients that were transported was $1,672,792. Off of that top, immediately, Medicare, which is your Social Security, $1,146. Medi-Cal, which is state-run system, they wrote down $193,009, and other contractual write-downs such as Kaiser and other insurance carriers. The gross amounts then become, it's a little confusing, and I don't mean to get too deep in the numbers here, but the net charges for that 12-month period ended up to be $1,063,450. That's what was allowed to be Medicare, Kaiser, or private pay. We then run into a situation where we have bad debt, where people cannot pay their ambulance fee, and or there's a write-off from the insurance company, which is typically bad debt comes from people. In that 12-month period, we had a $253,064 in bad debt. So our total payments for this 12-month period from August 2015 to July 2016 is $810,000. Also includes the residential copay piece that we spoke of earlier. Ambulance transport is an important service. In most localities, there are many options available as it relates to the ambulance. This packet in this discussion, this idea of the reversal of the copay for residents, staff does not recommend that reversal, although we do recommend support in going to the full billable rate, by the approve the ambulance chargeable rates that are provided by the County of Los Angeles in its entirety. The ongoing discussion, quite frankly, regarding ambulance transport charges is much about policymaking as it is about what reality is, regardless of the decision that the City Council makes this evening regarding the ambulance charges. The services provided by the fire department is by far the most effective and efficient method to deliver life-saving care to the residents, businesses, and our visitors alike. Frankly, the gold standard in the region. Our paramedics are outstanding. They provide outstanding service. This is an essential service to the residents of El Segundo, and staff feels that this is an appropriate charge going forward as it relates to both the billable amount. One other city in the entire County of Los Angeles that has adopted the write-off of residential copay, and that's the city of Laverne. So that is, in a nutshell, ambulance transport 101 for you. Again, this is a very have, but quite frankly, the two paramedic model and the ability to cost recover as much as possible, in staff's opinion, would be the best path forward.
Thank you, Chief.
I have a question. Chief, general public ambulance rates there, what are the current charges? I see $17.76 for basic and ALS is at $1,900. How much are we going up? That's one question. The other is, if you could tell us just, I see the increase in $65,000, but what is the total for residential copay?
That is the total.
That is it. So $65,000
is the net revenue that we received once the once the residential copay was implemented and ambulance receipts. That's how much additional revenue we receive.
That's much smaller than I would guess, given the 1.6 million gross charge, but okay.
Not all. Yeah. Those transport along the same extent only, not total?
Correct.
Okay.
And then also, what's the additional fees you'll be able to collect once you implement the new standards?
So if we go with the new standards, there will be a bundling of services, which is the county's way of agencies could pick different services to charge for. You couldn't go above the county rates, but you could pick everything within that range of services. If we were to go to the new county rate structure, we would be charging port call $1,900 or $1,900 for an advanced life support call. We would also be charging $18 per mile once we $92 for every patient that would require oxygen, $172 for every patient that would require volume ventilation, and there's for difficulty breathing patients, we put them on what's called a CPAP, which is a mask that would be the full amount allowable by the County of Los Angeles, which is what we would recommend.
And then, Chief, I see that for waiting time, for each 30 minutes, it's $100 or $96 for standby time for each 30-minute. Paramedics spend a lot of time at the hospital waiting.
Yes, ma'am. That's called wait time or wall time, where the paramedics transport the patient to the hospital and they have to wait for a bed to open up. In essence, there are patients on a stretcher next to the wall, and by transfer to a medical authority that's higher, so we have to wait for a bed to open. Those special charges that you see in your chart are geared for private ambulances, where a private ambulance company would charge for wait time. If they're called to come from a medical procedure and then get transferred to another hospital, they could charge for that wait time. That's not applicable to our service, nor is the after-hours charges that ambulances can provide. Some ambulance companies have nurses that provide neonatal support. We wouldn't fall under that.
And also, I see that it is not uncommon for ambulance transport costs, which insurance companies deem unnecessary, on behalf of their insured member to go to our paramedics transport somebody to the hospital, and then their insurance say that you could have driven yourself.
That's right. So in those instances, you'll have, although rare, you'll have an insurance company that may not submit it. We may have an advanced life support type of a call, and for whatever reason, the insurance company may disagree with that and only pay the basic life rate, in which case that differential goes to collections. We do collections. They go through the normal business practice of collections, but as you can see, we do have a lot of bad debt write-off, which is very typical given this type of service.
So if somebody doesn't pay their bill and it just is a bad debt, does that report?
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, do you have a general sense of, with this new rate structure, how much of an increase?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that it's difficult to pin that down because there are a lot of variables, but my sense is if we were to go, and if there was a decision, say, to go back to the old way of the write-off for the residential process, my sense is, although not, it's quite, I don't want to collect more than the potential loss of that copay from the residents. So if we were to change our billing to the insurance company, and this is what's really important, we're not billing the patient, we're billing the insurance company. If we were to approve, our revenues would far and exceed that potential lost revenue, in my opinion.
Mayor? I read the report carefully, preparing for tonight's meeting. It's very well done, I think. Complex situation. I think that the last paragraph on page 24 is the paragraph I like the most in the report, because it talks about the gold standard. That's what I had, and I hope that that's what we always will have. Our fire personnel do an amazing job, and you can talk to people throughout town that feel exactly that way about the service that they've received. It is spot on, and I think this report's really well done, and thanks for walking us through it.
Do we want to talk the fees?
Just, it's my desire to move forward with what the chief kind of described there, is to, if he wants to readjust our billing rates, I'm sure you're going to get them discounted by it's my desire to waive the residents portion of the collection portion of the fees here. That's my desire as a councilman here, so that's.
It's my desire as well.
Are we making a motion?
Or maybe it will be another motion, but people who have outstanding debt right now, are we going to forgive that as well, part of this?
That's really a natural process in the billings process cycle. It's been that way prior to the copay. It will be that way potentially after. There's no way of knowing what who's not going to pay your ambulance.
She's saying
I'm
back
sorry.
for the residents.
There are people right now who just got ambulance bills.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
A Delta, and
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was contacted by one person asking if he should pay it, and I said, you should probably wait and see what we do tonight.
Yeah, well, we could maybe post date, like the activity date, so go back to, say, beginning of July or something.
It's a little tricky. Ambulance billing typically is a 2 to 3 month lag from the actual service to billing. So we can certainly work with the third-party administrator, and if you would like to provide a date for us to go that would otherwise get charged the copay, we can certainly work with the third-party administrator and do that.
Will you make that part of your motion?
And the motion tonight will be to direct staff to come back with a resolution to implement.
I'd like to move that we direct staff to make a resolution to adopt the LA County EMSA General Public Ambulance rates at the top of the rates schedule there, and that we eliminate, I might not get this right, Mark, you might have to help me, but that we eliminate the residential copay.
Date to that.
Oh,
And
and-
outstanding.
And
Yes.
from September 1st forward or whatever, right?
Well,
Or
no,
you want to pick a time, or?
Want to go back to July, or, since you said there's a 2 to 3 month lag?
Yes, ma'am. Accept the LA County ambulance general rates in its entirety. So,
Right.
Yes, sir, the ones you have outlined here,
yes, sir.
the 6.
Yes, sir.
rates are- So, all right, then let me just restate that. I move that we adopt the LA County EMSA, no longer charge our residents the ambulance transport fee, their share of it, if and that we go back to July 1 and look at any outstanding debts owed to the city with the possibility of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Giving that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Chief, thank you.
It's very well done, Chief.
Nice job, yeah.
Item 1, unfinished business, continuation of the August 29, 2016 special meeting to consider action regarding city council guidance to staff for preparing the fiscal year 2016-17 proposed budget, general fund reserve policy of 18%, option 4, and ask council for direction on the prioritization of the recommended priorities. Fiscal impact, none. City manager?
Mayor, members of council, we're looking for some direction tonight on how to use the available funds for next year, policy option 4, which freed up about $3.2 million. So we are asking for council to discuss and make decisions around the allocation of that $3.2 million. We have some unfunded or budget neutral requests, primarily whether to make those staffing changes. And then finally, we have some requests from other funds, asset forfeiture and water department, that we're asking for some direction from tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe Lilio, our finance director at this point, and he has a brief presentation, the allocation of available funds.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. So this is a continuation of the August 29th budget study session. Remind you, this slide was presented on August 29th. And to recap, we do have general fund revenues projected to be at $67.8 million, and general fund expenditures $66.6 million. And then on August 29th, there were 4 reserve policy options presented to council. Council did give direction to staff to go with policy option number 4, which is 18 general fund reserve in a projected undesignated general fund reserve balance of about $3.26 million. This slide was also presented on the 29th to allocate the $3.26 million. Items number 1 through 20. On this slide, these were the department unfunded requests, which total 1.9 items on here that do need to be removed. There are potential additional funding source that has been identified for these 3 items, so let me just point those out. That's going to be the GIS software update for 50 system for planning and plan check at $50,000. And the third item is the laserfish scanning for planning and building safety at $100,000. So that's a removal of $200,000.
Again, please, so I can mark them.
Yes, sir, Dr. Brown. So the 3 items are the GIS software update, web mapping at $50,000.
What? Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay, so it should be slide number 9 in the presentation.
Then what were the other 2?
The other 2 check at $50,000. And then the third item is the laserfish scanning, planning, and building safety for $100,000.
The top 3 items on that slide.
Council at a subsequent meeting to discuss those potential funding sources.
So, Joe, I used the report from August 29th to go through and prepare my preferred list. Is that dated today? Will the numbers be the same in the sequence? So I can look at the one I marked?
Well, as far as the unfunded, they should be in the same sequence.
What about the funded?
Funded, yeah. And Dr. Brand, if I could, at this point, I would like to bring up an interactive worksheet to discuss City Council's prioritization of allocating the $3.26 million. I would also like to pose 2 questions. Let me And if you need me to enlarge the worksheet, please let me know. I can enlarge it. Okay. But the two questions I would like to pose are there any list of prioritizations, numbers 1 through 20? Also, are there any items in the unfunded column that you would like to have further discussion on?
Let's go with your first question. Is there any manager's recommendations?
I got a couple.
I've got a couple, support the items, but want to change the amount.
And I have just pulls. So you want me to just should I go through the ones I want to eliminate? Technology committee. So anything that is technology focused, I would prefer to wait until we have a technology steering committee in place that can set strategy and help us define what the requirements are and what we're going to be looking to do overall so that we've got consistent tech. 19, the online staffing. I'd like to look at something that's more robust than just one department specific. Number 16, the document imaging. After understanding that a little bit more, I know it's important, but I don't think it's on the arterial and local street rehab. I was hoping that we could reduce it to 200,000 and then come back mid-year and revisit, depending on how we're doing, to our forecast.
I think he was looking over my shoulder because I have the same items. It's funny.
I think good minds think alike.
I pulled that.
Dr. Brand, did you have any additional items to add?
3, I support but would like to decrease the total amount. Item 6, decrease the total amount in half, from 400 to 200. I drop item 16 and 19 as Mayor Pro Tem Boyles does. And I didn't fund the new position of equipment, just on this slide, right? Is what you wanted to know? Just this slide?
Yes, yeah, focusing on city manager's recommendations first.
Right.
Carolyn, Mike, have any?
I do.
I do, yeah. I want to reevaluate the marketing for 200,000. I'd like to decrease that.
I'm sorry, for which one?
Number 8.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
I missed that, Carol. I should have said, when it was my turn, that the item that the EDAC committee's been talking about is 240,000. And the city manager allocated funds about this last time. But if we are going to include it and do it, I'd like to do it as agreed to, apparently, at 240. I'm kind of going the other way, but trying to put down what was said.
There's already 40, I believe there's 40 there from the Chevron grant.
Well, there's 200 from the Chevron, and the whole budget, Drew helped me, was 440. 240 from the city and 200 from Chevron for 16-17.
That sounds about right.
I was saying at the, last session is just what was the agreement.
Nothing has been committed. We haven't agreed to anything.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, I want to reevaluate it.
Last time we talked about the addition of positions and shifting positions from part-time to full-time and doing some, as part of our budgeting process here. And I understand how important that is. Desire to increase positions, that we do a good enough look at, is there really a cost benefit associated with it, and are we really warranted in doing things? And the item 18 here talks about the equipment zeroed in on here, but the question is, how do we know we need an extra mechanic there? Do we have any data that shares the number of vehicles has increased or decreased from the time that we used to have that person? I don't see any of that kind of information flowing around, or in a desire to, I understand if there's promotions and people need to put those monies in their budgets, I understand that. I can support that. But if there's desires to move people around, just a more disciplined structure that we don't add or change positions without a real good vetting on, is it the right thing to do? And all we do is see numbers here and names tuned in. You know, Drew commented about, you know, we're talking about an information technology team, and we've got people trying to add people in those organizations, and for all the right reasons. I understand people are trying to build the organizations to provide better services, but I don't blanket funding all those right now, to be honest with you. I'd almost make a desire to pull them off of this, and much like if we have any salary increases that come as a result of any contracts that go forward coming out of some funding, to allocate those on a one-by-one basis. That way you have an opportunity to make sure that they're fully vetted, that you've got the right questions asked, and that they do fit into the organization, as opposed to just having 8 or 10 of them show up on a piece of paper here and say it. So I'm just uncomfortable blanketly putting manpower decisions on a budget like this, so.
I agree. I think, you know, there needs to be justification and evaluation of the org charts.
Can we identify those items that you're talking about?
So, you know, start at number 11, the library, you're moving 3 part-time positions to a full-time.
Okay.
Then, and then something about their salaries or whatever, $10,000 doesn't seem like a big thing, but I'm not sure what that does to an org chart. So the Coupa position, I saw the justification for that, and, you know, I don't know how long we've been doing without it, but they should be in the budget, and we shouldn't even be talking about them right now. And that's the kind of discipline I'd like to see us establish as a city here. Is these positions are budgeted, they're always in the budget, and we're going to, you know, we have to fill them. That's our responsibility, as opposed to creating new ones. Medics, if that's a promotion, and I'm all for that, but I'm not, you know, I assume that's what it is. And then going from 2 part-time to 2 full-time maintenance in the parks reclassification, what's that doing to the org chart? What do we do when we do an analysis like this is I want to add these positions. So we look at a bare bones cost of their salaries, and then, you know, you look at, we're going to talk about the increases in PERS and everything else. We're going to have some escalation, some infrastructure support that goes with adding people. Are there more vehicles in the fleet? Are we doing some more things? Is there more organizational costs associated with these people? And when it really comes down to it, when we add this body, are we getting a cost benefit out of that? And that's maybe not be a good thing to say, but it is reality. As we add that cost to the budget, what are we getting for that cost? And is there another way to achieve that without adding that cost? Is the questions that need to be vetted before we add anybody.
If we set aside the funding for these positions, and then in the meetings up ahead, had each one taken, you know, separately presented, justified, and you wouldn't fund it, you'd pull the money out.
That was what I intended by
Okay.
that's how we're planning on dealing with any kind of
Okay.
contract costs as we
Okay.
go forward. So that same kind of an approach.
Okay.
That would be handled out of our contingency, so to speak.
Yeah, but wait till they later get justified and
Well,
reasoned through.
Well, they wouldn't be approved tonight, though.
Well, I think
so-
what you're saying is just approve a lump sum money for potential
Money.
shifting in
Yeah,
the
because
organization.
if we later do it, we've got to have the money to
Right.
fund it.
So you just say, like, come up with a part of the budget for any additional staffing needs or adjustment to staffing,
Mm-hmm.
and then at a later date, the department heads can justify and present what they're, how they want
Yeah.
to restructure.
Then Mike would feel, you know, that reasoned through. Okay. So you have number 20 in there and number 18?
I had, 17 was, you're adding a city engineer and you're eliminating a principal civil engineer. I saw the write-up on that. I envision the name tag on a person's office changing, and it costs us $28,000 to do that. Is kind of how I'm envisioning that, so. And then the other two, 19 and 20, are also, I'm not sure the telestaff, the online.
So that falls under technology. Chief Donovan had requested that.
Okay, so,
And then originally when you asked us, you just want us to pull stuff, or how about the stuff that we feel is not in here? You want to get,
To identify any items that you're not in agreement with the city manager's recommendation.
I think
And then we'll
it sounds like
discuss
we're on
them.
the same page, but with the exception of marketing. We have-
Right. Well, and also I'd like to talk about item 3. Since we've gone through them, can we start at the top now? Gutter, and there were suggestions made to decrease it, but I thought we had received very good bids, and so we were trying to get as many completed at a much higher or.
We have been
much better price.
experiencing more favorable bids when
We have,
we've been able to do more with the same amount of money.
yeah, so that's why. So,
And
Now,
are
this
there-
item also helps mitigate liabilities that the city is exposed to.
Yeah.
Support that.
Are
And then-
there specific streets that are earmarked currently, or is it more of a?
We know where they are, and they're rated based on the hazard. So we take on the most hazardous locations first. So they're all over town.
so the word here says annual, so.
Mark just had a heart attack, didn't he?
So the word says annual, have we been asking, it would have changed?
The last, I believe, 3 years, we've been allocating either 200 or 250,000. Previous to that, we were allocating very little.
Can we spend that much in a year? Can we get
Yes.
that much work done? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we really know where they are right now. We're going to,
Okay, wait just a second. You had said originally, Joe, that the budget that you prepared basically mirrored last year's, and then this is additive. So is the 250 additive to the, what was on there last for, because this
So-
is annual,
right.
so that leads me to believe that, but this is additive. So is this a full 250 on top of what we already did? What from last year?
No, this is just,
You
I
see what I mean? You
believe,
told me, you said that the
Right.
budget was basically taking last year's budget to this
with
year's.
the exception of the CIP. So CIP is, that changes from year to year. But the 250, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I came on board in May, I believe that was, some funding was allocated towards that for the current year.
Well, item 9 on your agenda tonight is to accept that complete.
Well,
didn't
adopted budget,
include-
it was
that's what I'm
added
asking you.
subsequent to the adoption of the budget.
Okay, I
so
got
there's
you.
700 some $1,000 on that item. Is that an annual, or is that a more than 1 year's worth of cost on that?
That was multiple years.
Multiple years of cost, okay. I'm in favor of all the infrastructure items as they're listed here, to be honest with you. I don't have any issue with any of those.
Drew.
Can
cut
you-
60.
Workbook with the headcount reductions, not reductions, but taking the headcount out until we've decided? Are we saying we're going to
No,
allocate
we keep the money in
funds?
there, we're just
Okay.
not going to
So how
identify
much-
who they're going to.
How much have we agreed to decrease anything here?
Nothing.
Not yet.
Number 6 and
That was the-
number 16, I think Don did as well.
Yep.
And number 19.
19.
So
Okay.
item 6 is arterial and local street rehab. And it says 500,000, and then in the 18% expenditure is 400,000. So can you explain?
It generally, we have some federal dollars that we're going to use on El Segundo Boulevard next year. El Segundo Boulevard is rated as one of our worst streets, or potentially our worst street as far as conditions in the city. We wanted to put in another $400,000 so that we get further west, starting on the east side of town, further west towards Sepulveda. Obviously, the more we put into this pot, the further we can get with El Segundo Boulevard. And if I could, the department heads are ready to justify each of their personnel requests tonight, if you want to hear the justification.
I think we do.
Anybody doing anything tomorrow? Is
Yeah.
We'll be going till then.
Just approving a
Can we-
budget. We're
Can
putting,
we get that, are they written up? Can we read them and come back to you? Because we're going to have questions on them. If we're justifying personnel, I guarantee there's going to be questions.
right, I mean, if we
We'll be here
appropriate
forever.
the funds, but we're just not identifying who
got it.
those funds go to.
Hearing positions,
Yes,
and then we
And
need
then
to
we
bring
just-
that back. Yeah, so tonight, you're not approving anything, you're just giving us direction on how to proceed with the budget. So we can proceed that way. And then department heads can have very descriptive writing.
We'll have the money, otherwise we'll spend the money on something else. And then when you get forward, if we like it, we won't have any way to fund it, right?
So I support 400,000 for El Segundo Boulevard because that is one of the entrances to our city.
I'm struggling with the 400, full 400. I mean, there's other things on the back page that I would prefer to put some of that money toward.
Yeah, I think the interest in the fund.
Correct.
And if we don't capture some money on the funded list, we're not going to have any money to fund them with. That's what's going on.
So can you explain to 200,000?
Well, as an example, we would do El Segundo Boulevard from the eastern city boundary to Douglas, as opposed to doing it to Continental. We're not going to go as far west with the El Segundo.
There are no safety concerns, right? It's mostly aesthetics.
No, the roads are falling apart. There's some
No, it's
issues
not
over there.
What are we having
They're not
issues
gonna get
with?
any better with time either. Those are
No.
they're gonna get more expensive to repair the longer you wait, so.
From Chevron and other places.
Yeah.
Is that part of the problem? Are we looking to mitigate some of that traffic?
1-800 got junk trucks, maybe.
Those two. They're moving to Gardena soon. Sure.
So the question is, what are the implications?
I'm going to try to summarize this quickly because I know it's late, but we rate our streets, all of them, on a scale from 0 to 100, 100 being best, 0 being worst. And in groups of that rating, you have degraded, poor, fair, good, excellent, an average to be right at the threshold between fair and good, which is a PCI index of 74. So we're below that today. To inch that direction, I think our PCI overall is 64, and this particular is down. Every year we don't spend money to do a grinding cap means that we need to be putting away even more money to do a full depth replacement. So it really is, although it doesn't sound like it, cost effective to do the minor repair so that you don't have to do the major repair. And index survey done, and it tells you how much you are spending. Well, we tell them how much we are spending on roads, and they tell you how much you should be spending. You want to move our PCI index from 64 up to that desirable number of 73. So annually, we should be spending about 100 to 750. So we're behind 500 to 600,000 every year. And if we're not allocating that money, we will continue to grow further and further and further behind. And then at some point, the road will be so degraded, we're going to have to spend a lot more money to bring it up to.
If we were to do it phased, where you did half of El Segundo Boulevard, revisit how we're doing financially mid-year, how much more would that cost us by stopping the project and resuming?
You could absolutely put this particular item on hold till mid-year with the number of capital. We actually won't be spending until next spring. But come next spring, what I really need is a lot more than 500,000 just to do El Segundo Boulevard between basically Big 5 and Sepulveda is $2.5 million. $8 and some other ones. To do Sepulveda to Whiting is going to be another $1.9 million. And again, we tackle the roads based on the worst ratings. That's where all of our focus goes in our funding. So, so 400,000, as Greg says, inches the ball further down, but we have a long way to go. So you certainly can hold off this, but I'm going to need the money in March or April.
And is Raytheon, I know they're doing expansion because they're certainly going to put a huge bind on traffic right there at Sepulveda and El Segundo.
Their responsibility is to add a fourth lane eastbound in front of their project as it gets developed. So it's going to get developed in segments. So the first segment's going to add a fourth lane eastbound, and then they'll add that fourth lane. So only incrementally.
Okay.
And that addition's actually a couple of $1 million because of the utility pole relocation.
And we did get a development deal from them. Get $1.5 million, the development deal?
The development agreement was, in round numbers, I think, giving us about $500,000, $600,000 a year for
Oh. For 8
6 years?
6 years, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a couple $1 million. So what is the will of the council?
Just to redo the roads there, the $400,000.
What do I- That's 2.
It's kind of hard to make that decision until we circle back on a couple other items for me personally. Can we revisit some of these other ones?
Sure.
Everyone, do we have consensus on eliminating a couple of these things? I thought, Mike, I heard you say that number 19, the telestaff. Don and I mentioned that one. Were you?
Was that
Did you
another
wanna
one we were going to park the funds, though?
Isn't that
So the
at least parking the
IT.
funds?
Allocate funds for technology, not specific projects, and this could be one of the projects after it's been vetted by the technology committee in conjunction with the new IS director that we're hiring. versus identifying a specific project right now.
So I guess that would be a question, is there telestaff?
Thank you, ma'am. Telestaff is it. So as it relates to the need for technology for the fire department, this has actually been teed up before in the last strategic planning process. This was put forward. Frankly, I don't disagree with the idea of doing a global approach as it relates to technology. But that said, the Telestaff software system is the gold standard, if you will, as it relates to the staffing module. And I can speak from personal experience in the 2 previous departments I worked for. We use the Telestaff system. There are many advantages. It, one, reduces staff hours that we currently use manually, so we're going to get a great efficiency. And there's a fantastic back-end analytics to this where we can begin to track and trend our leave usage reports, and we can provide some good reports back to the city council in terms of again, I'm a huge advocate of Telestaff. I think it would be a prudent step forward to keep it in the discussion moving forward. The sooner that we could stand this up and implement it, to me, I think will bring great efficiencies. We choose to go to a broader approach to put additional departments underneath the Telestaff module. If it works, we can, in essence, be the test site for the city.
See, Chief, that's my concern, having rolled out workforce management systems for large companies like last year for Valero, and that we could also implement this for other departments. I wouldn't want to necessarily pigeonhole ourselves to Telestaff, because there's great products out there from Kronos and other vendors that, again, that could be the right answer. I just want to ensure that the technology committee is involved and that this is more strategic in nature versus take a step back, look at all the technical priorities that we're looking at, have a technical architect involved that says this is the right product at this time. We go through the RFP, we do the software selection, we have someone who knows how to implement this thing, integrate it to other systems, a whole 9 yards. So,
right. Well, and it's interesting.
Good.
They're basically run
good.
by Kronos. It's an extremely stable platform. It's a extremely efficient program for the fire department. We're estimating 2 to 3 hours a day that the chief officers are spending. Highly encourage the city to consider this moving forward.
But if we waited just 6 months, enough time for us to get a committee involved, figure some things out, wouldn't have a major impact, right, on your department? I mean, you're operating without it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Would like us to.
I agree.
I didn't know it was a Kronos product. That's
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Said the right word.
So
The duck
do we want to approve the 56,000 toward,
Our
do
age
you
is
want to
showing
take it
up.
off suggestion? We don't have any funds allocated for them to play with at all.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought on technology, based on what we were interviewing candidates today for the technology committee, and people that have built websites, we're talking about huge ranges in terms of what we want to build. But a website alone, web back-end work to do as well, but yet we have, to your point, nothing allocated for technology, and we said one of our strategic priorities was technology. I think we need like $450,000 just for technology-specific projects,
Absolutely.
given how, and I don't know where we're going to come up with that, but.
One of the options, Mayor Pro Tem, is, as you suggested, look at mid-year, and we can see, if we do have any operational savings as well through some of this technology.
The problem is we recognize that we need to do this, and it's one of our main strategic visions for the city. We would be not in our good faith if we didn't allocate some money toward it. We need to upfront have prepared. I know we have the 133 for the website, but that's going to be a drop in the bucket. So if we have that 133, we need another $400,000.
So I support Telestaff. He said Telestaff.
Well, we can move that 56 into the technology budget, and that Telestaff be part of the solution.
I want to support the doing it the right way, involved in making sure that it's the right thing. So, I trust the chief. If he's right, the committee and everybody else will validate that. But I think we're looking for more broad spectrum use of that. May not be the best standard platform. It may be the best one for the one particular department, but there may be another one that suits the purpose and is a better fit for the whole organization. And then I don't want to waste money by going one direction, then forcing to stop that coming.
I'd be curious to see what the report that we had done a year or so ago also recommended for that. So it sounds like the will of the council is to take that amount of money and put it in a parking lot.
Where are we on dealing with number 8, the marketing and the amount? We kind of put that over in the parking lot, and we,
The majority of the council wants to do with that
Yeah.
item. So we do have $200,000 in Chevron dollars that we were going to use for citywide marketing, and that was our plan. With the passage of the tax measure, staff wanted to follow through with the commitment to the travel industry that we would try some enhanced marketing and see how it worked. EDAC recommended an additional $240,000. Don asked me why I didn't put $240,000 in, and it was really a function of trying to make the number significant commitment on the city's part. So that's where the recommendation is coming from.
And there's no commitment on Chevron's part, and no indication really that they're going to continue to fund beyond this year.
That's correct.
Okay. And
Right.
we've had a lot of success, as we know. I mean, forget about all the other ancillary. I know I've made this back of the envelope analysis before, and I'm sure it needs to be fact-checked, but if the average room night is $175 in El Segundo, and we're getting 12% of that, and let's assume we're getting $4 in sales a night, $25 a night, that's less, given the room inventory that we have and the number of hotels going up to 12 or whatever it is right now, that's less than 2 additional room nights a night to justify the $200,000, let alone all the other things in our restaurants downtown. We're going to have more people going and occupying space. Our vacancies, we got $1 billion of development going on right now, and I think we need to work hard to ensure that those developers get the help that they need to fill those. To me, again, I've said this before, any organization spends money on marketing their organization.
I agree. I'm not satisfied with the proposal that was given to us as what the 440,000 was going to be used for.
Okay,
I
but
feel-
that changed, but
They work for us. They'll do what we tell them, but I agree with you. I committed to spending it on that, and it was made very clear to us by Chevron that it was really expected at all. So it was really found money, and I wouldn't count on it in the future.
we've got the Champions of Business event coming up, which is going to be kind of groundbreaking for the city, recognizing Richard Lundquist, and the things came through EDAC dollars and support. We got 18 people on our council that are really vested leaders in this town that are working really hard on economic development. And we cannot just sit back and expect people to come to us. We got Inglewood competing, Culver City, Playa Vista, everybody downtown. Garcetti wants to eliminate gross receipts tax. I don't know if he'll ever get it done. Everybody's going after the same people
And
as
the
us.
surrounding cities are modeling us.
Right.
So
I'm open to the two.
we have a consensus, or at least a majority on 200.
I support the 200,000. That was our commitment to take Chevron off the hook for funding. So we either have to engage in the game ourselves, or we have to step out of it. And we've said we committed to engage in the game, and that was the price of admission. So I'm supporting that.
Except I thought the price was $240.
Round off error.
Do we want to return to 240?
Well,
At 200.
whatever agreement, you and the former council reached, I'd like to honor it. So I've got concerns about this whole thing as I've expressed, but I think the more overriding concern is doing what you say you were going to do. And I don't think it's fair to expect Chevron to carry. I hope I can see some metrics a year from now that this paid off and it worked for us. We got something for our money, because I can spend this 200 or 240 on a few other things on our list tonight. But didn't they build? That's what their budget's on. So this is
So
going
do I
to
hear
cause
240?
them.
that budget, we've asked them to reevaluate that budget.
Mm-hmm.
I had some issues with some of the things in the budget.
So that's something that would be done at an
I
EDAC.
hear 200 or 240.
I'm at
200's on the
240.
paper, let's just stay with the 200.
Going from 0 to 240.
Mayor Pro Tem.
200 is fine.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
Those personnel items, it's got to be individually justified, like 11, 12, 13, 14. The IS director.
I would say, yeah, you know, if you add those up, it's about $500,000, but $132,000 there, so.
Okay, so that goes in that category.
Don, Mike, are you including, there's also the license plate reader has a IS specialist associated with it.
Okay, so in place, so I did not take the manpower portion of that.
So
So
let's
is
look
there,
at
is
the
there a
math on
salary
number
in that number
7.
7?
Is number 7 $125,000 over 3 years, meaning it's almost $42,000 a year, and 1,000 times 3.
So
The equipment would be over 3 years at $125,000 each year to build out the system, and the staff position is $128,000 per year.
Total, is that right, Joe? And then another 128 times 3 to cover it for 3 years.
Police chief is saying yes.
So maybe we want to hear
Where is
more
it,
about the
Chief?
IS specialist, but I think with that, we agree that the community cameras and fixed license plate readers are a necessity.
Yep.
So do we want to talk about the specialist? Or
And
do we
one
wanna
thing to
talk
point
about
out-
that in the parking lot.
we're anticipating 4 months recruitment process.
Mm.
But then you have to pay for that, the full.
In
continuous-
subsequent
yeah,
budget years,
right,
yes.
yeah.
So do we want to see the justification line item?
Okay.
And go ahead with the cameras? and
Well, does
license
it
plate
do any
readers?
good to get the cameras and the license plate readers if we don't have the specialist? I need some help on that.
It sounds like staff is returning on the 20th, Quest.
Okay.
We can incorporate the specialist justification and that discussion on the 20th if you wish, and just
Put it in, lump it in.
Okay.
parking lot, put the staff dollars in the parking lot for now.
Better guard that lot.
License plate readers are approved,
Yes.
125.
And I know we didn't pull number 10, but can, just on the Main Street crosswalk lighting, where's that lighting?
There are stop signs currently, not stop lights, but stop signs. They'd be the lighted stop signs, right?
Oh, it's all of them? It's not just the one
And the
that's from?
crosswalks,
Need to,
mid-block crosswalk.
yeah.
So in front of Fantastic Burger, crossing the street, there's 4 of them?
4 of them.
Oh, the one right here.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so just to be clear, these are all crosswalk lighting projects, not stop sign lighting projects.
Mm.
The 100, 200, 300, and 400 blocks that were installed when Main Street was originally done over a decade ago that have never quite functioned correctly. It's going to be to replace those with the ones
On Aviation, or on Douglas. I
on
mean.
Douglas, and also right here by bringing them in other places. We have them on Maple, we have them on Park Place now. They're tried and true, they're wireless.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to get the rec park part-time, additional part-time. So,
Yeah, those weren't additional people, those were additional hours in that budget item to cover classes and activities, which would be offset by revenues.
Members of the library board, didn't they already do their thing?
mhm.
I mean, aren't we done
Well-
with that one?
This says library 3 part-time positions into 1 full-time. I thought they were asking to maintain the school librarians, so
That wasn't what they were lobbying for. It was this, right? There's Deborah.
Yeah, we had a vacancy become available in the library that we decided not to fill a couple of years ago. We've been filling it with pitching in. It is a allocated position, but we decided not to budget it when that person retired in order to balance our budget.
Well, when you say we decided not to, council didn't approve it, is that the one, Deborah, from?
Actually, the third year that we're going into not having that position. So, yeah,
Yes.
13, 14, it was frozen, 14, 15, still not
What
funded.
is
They refer to the impact that not having a cataloger and processing person has on the school libraries as well, because we do all the processing for the
Is that
schools.
related to this item?
This full-time position is at the main library, and it's a cataloging.
Lined up for the future, if we've already heard number 11, let's just agree to it
Make a
and
decision.
not include it, in the other 7 or 8.
So I have one question for you. When the two came, when things weren't being cataloged, a long time ago when I was in high school, that was one of the classes I took where I volunteered in the library and I cataloged things and do that. Do we not have that ability anymore?
It
To make
takes,
it a class?
it does take of a Dewey system of databases. It's a little bit more involved. There's at least 2 databases that you're working with. We've had part-time people, and it's just not working. The turnover is, like Sam kind of brought that up, pulling other staff away from public service desks to do the cataloging process takes time.
So it's nothing that somebody could learn in a semester to do?
No, it's beyond a high school person.
I guess I was a superior teen.
Just, this is one of those, this is a perfect item to say, are we really looking at the right cost here, right? Because I'm going to take 3 part-time positions that I'm not paying benefits to, and I'm going to put 1 full-time position there, and it's going to cost me, look at that on the surface, I just think of the cost of benefits and everything else.
But we're not able to fill the part-time people. There's too big a turnover. They're not staying. That's why I have 3 positions open right now.
I understand. I'm not saying no to this. I work when we actually put the right cost in the budget, because the worst thing we can do, in my opinion, is justify something that looks like it's going to cost us $13,000, and it winds up being the full burdened cost of an employee. And then you sit there and you go, well, yeah, you approved it. I'm just trying to put the information out there, so.
I always ask about if it's burdened or not, Mike, so I agree with you. So do we want to see what the burdened expense is?
Well, and I have a hard time, maybe we're not doing a proper outreach to people looking for jobs, so maybe we're just not reaching the right populace and we're not advertising in the best places.
Okay, where are we at?
So do we want to put that?
In the parking
Oh,
lot.
the others, it's fine. What about number 16?
Well, can we go to 12?
Oh,
the
sorry, we're
rec
going in
park?
order, yeah.
You said that's just that's additional hours, additional part-time rec park, part-time salaries is additional hours.
Relates to an employee change.
We just want to do another.
Okay, but can we discuss the Coupa position? Because it says restore, and Mike, you were questioning that, but we haven't had anybody doing Coupa because you said 1 person left and 1 person retired, and that,
The fire marshal's been using part of his time to fill that role. We have another part-time person that's assisting him.
And then didn't we hire that consultant to come and do, so we're paying a consultant today to do it, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. John, Chief?
and does,
Yes. So we currently, the position had been vacant since, I believe, September of 14.
2 years?
Or perhaps my dates are incorrect there, but it's been vacant for a period of time, filling in, so doing the fire marshal duties and the Coupa program duties. Subsequent to that, we did hire a consultant who is on board now. This is a highly qualified type position, requires an awful lot of experience, and we are requesting that we fill it on a full-time basis. And we do get cost recovery for the Coupa program.
For the salary, just not all the benefits and the CalPERS and.
Depends how fast you're.
And what is the mechanism for the recovery of costs here?
Well, we permit hazardous material handlers, and they are permitted, and business licenses are a little bit So it's a every 3-year process. The hazmat handlers in the city pay fairly, compared to normal business, a higher amount, and that is calculated, amortized over that 3-year period.
Yeah, no, so that,
Sir.
that doesn't change, so the revenue doesn't change, we're just trying to get a person in here to administer the,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to see that a little more fleshed out, to be honest with you.
Okay, the parking lot.
Sorry, Chief.
Thank you.
You might want to stay
Not
there
saying
because
no,
we have
just
fire reclassification.
This is a request. We have a fully full-time equivalent position as a firefighter. We work on the platoon basis, A, B, and C platoons. On the A and C platoon, the current position fighter, what we're requesting is to reclassify from firefighter to firefighter paramedic, that one position. It would give us operational advantage and keep staffing on all 3 shifts to 5 paramedics on duty. Ambulances, again, at the hospitals on the wall, and having that 5th paramedic on duty each across the board, consistent on all 3 shifts, is a prudent step forward. This cost is the pay differential for paramedic.
Thank you. You want the same information? Burdened.
No, the burdens don't change on this one, it's just, you're just reclassifying a position on the,
As you said.
Well, Chief, is the 12 just the
Changing the org chart,
compensation
right?
difference? Or
Yes,
does
sir.
that include like CalPERS and all that?
That's
too?
full cost,
Okay.
including, that's a fully burdened cost.
that's just the.
So is this one approved?
Yes?
Yeah, that was easy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Parks, reclassification, so we want the same information on that. Document imaging, police records in jail. Sorry, Chief. Here. That's going to go into technology.
But we could move, yeah, because
Yeah. Add city engineer, eliminate 1 principal civil engineer.
I saw what was in the packet, I'm just saying, let's,
put it in the parking lot.
Parking lot.
yeah.
Equipment mechanic 2, new position. We're looking for justification on that.
Parking lot, we're going to need an attendant in there.
So, telestaff, we put in technology. I'm not sure what RECL, but city clerk records technician from part-time to full-time. Or do we want a city clerk to?
Have the same standard and everybody needs to submit
We need to,
justification
yeah.
with an org chart.
Well, is the request coming from the city clerk, Kiwanis, to me, out of respect for another elected? I take her at her word, so.
In God I trust, all others bring data. So, I'm just asking for the data.
What you're saying is you want a standard, set a new standard,
We
that
need
for
to-
any new or changing in an org chart, there should be some justification process and review. Is that?
I think she shared something with us last time, and I know you get an awful lot of requests.
We're doing a total historical budget. We're not doing any real bottoms-up build or rationale. Apparently, the city did do a zero-based budgeting at one point, many years ago. I think it is good just to have some rationale behind it.
Okay, on to attachment B.
So Mayor, if I can just get clarification, when you're saying park the funds for the technology and for the staff, you want to allocate it for those specific purposes to be approved at a later date?
We want, I think it was different with technology. We want to allocate it for technology, generally speaking, TBD.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But keep that same dollar amount that the city manager had?
No, we want to increase that.
Yeah, if we can, if we can find the funds. we
Okay.
want it.
But so far,
There's been no reduction.
we've repurposed or put on hold those dollars.
Yes. All right. Attachment B, you told us the 3 that were deleted
They're onto the unfunded list.
on the unfunded. For everybody watching at home, fiscal year 2016-17 additional general fund request, unfunded.
So just real quick, Joe, with the changes we just made. nothing
So you have
changed.
28,000 extra,
So nothing.
correct?
Okay.
Right, so if we add these, if we add anything, then we have to come up with a funding source somewhere.
I thought we took 100 grand.
IT Technology Solutions, but I wanted to increase it to 100,000.
Yeah. So right now we have 133, which is not part of the budget, it's just separate money, right? That was what you had said last time?
Well, this is what-
We have equipment replacement fund,
Right.
and then an additional 156 that we're allocating here, and that's the telestaff that was 56-1, and the chief's document imaging.
Councilmember Persick was asking how much money we have allocated for the website.
What, 150 or 130? So 150.
150 is what this says, and I'm suggesting another to be the number that we're hearing at a minimum, to give us a working website befitting El Segundo, the city where big ideas take off.
150. Right.
Three other items that I was interested in adding: the emergency manager, the human resources analyst, but then I'm recommending the centennial celebration.
That's in there, isn't it? Oh,
TBD.
I'm sorry. He had a number, he has a number in there, 50 grand.
So that's what I suggested last.
And then we should add money for the plunge, just because we know we're going to need some money for the plunge.
Well, for regular maintenance or for a filter replacement?
Not tonight. Yeah.
I was looking at Meredith.
Time we adopt this.
So 100,000 towards additional website technology.
That's an additional 100 plus the 150 to bring it to 250.
So the 150 is already built into the existing budget.
Now, it doesn't have to be used for a website, right? Like, if we determine that there's so much work to be done on the back end before we even attempt to take on a website, it could be used for that as well, right?
If you want to put it in a tech.
I advocate for fire station alerting. I want them to get there 45 seconds earlier, in case I need them.
45 seconds earlier if you need them.
That's right. I could make a big difference. You're not breathing. 45 seconds is a long time. 7, 9.
Where are we going to come up with this money? We're net neutral on the first slide, right?
Correct. So there has to be reductions, and if we're going to move forward with those suggestions.
Yeah.
Conclusion of is that there are a number of worthy things that we just can't afford to do them all this year. So some of them get carried over to our discussion next year. Or we reevaluate at mid-year. Maybe we end this year better than we expected, or we have some other savings. And
I had emergency management coordinator on there too.
How much is that, 105?
Yes, sir.
Is it?
I just spent the weekend in New York City and they were all braced for a hurricane.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable what other places do.
So about 300,000. That's adding the emergency management coordinator, to added an additional 100,000 for technology website.
That's assuming we go with all the recommendations and the positions, right?
Yes.
Correct. That's correct.
The way this is going to roll out, we come back here on the 20th and we kind of get a report on the damages we did here. And then on the 28th, we vote on the budget for 16, 17?
Correct. We can bring this back on the 20th.
Yeah. Need to find
Any other
the-
discussions or recommendations around the unfunded?
Drew pointed out the unfortunate.
Right, but for some of the technology items, we shouldn't expect any recommendations for several months, so that money won't be spent right away.
We have 150 already included in the budget, so it brings it up to 400,000.
Technology.
Correct.
You're going to need it.
You know, what's good here is that we're not working over a list of things to cut. This is good after the recession, that we can make choices about things that we'd like to improve in the city, and this isn't a cut list, really. So really into what public agencies have been through, in the last years. You step back and look at it.
We also have a group, I know we have to discuss it as a council, but we have a group of El Segundo marketing firm. They would love to partner with us on the sponsoring Campus El Segundo if the council is open to it. So I know we're already committing funds, but maybe that's a way, if the council decides that's a path we want to go, where we could recoup some of that for these other projects. The way I understand it is Mr. Lundquist is open to
They'll relinquish it for the
relinquish for
right
10
price.
years, yeah. Yeah.
You're right. Start those conversations. Sounds like you already have.
So I would suggest that try to solve this $300,000 gap, or reprioritize the items that are still being discussed, and provide the justification for all the personnel requests. And once you have heard about all the additional personnel requests, and you can weigh them against these additional requests, or some of the additional requests that you decide can wait another year.
Yes, that's the direction.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just a couple more items to get through. So we do have the budget neutral requests, which were presented on the 29th. With planning and building safety, who wants Sam, my department, eliminate the accounting manager position, which is currently an approved and budgeted position, and turn that into one full-time accountant and one part-time accountant. So this is the first city I've worked for where I do not have accountants, and it is greatly needed. And then we have public works with a budget neutral request, and recreation and parks.
I think these also fall within that they need to be justified within the same. There needs to be justification and some analysis done.
So we'll bring that back on the 20th as well. Then we do have the budget requests from other funding sources, fund, equipment replacement fund, and water operations fund. They all do have fund balances that can accommodate these requests. If council can give staff direction on that, if they would like to move forward with that, including it in part.
Did you say the last thing again, Joe? I'm sorry. I was reading when you said that. What was the very last thing you said?
If city council can give staff direction whether to include these proposed.
16, 17, you mean?
I'm sorry, 16, 17 budget, yes.
I think we should. I move approval to include these things.
There is a manpower thing
Yeah,
in
there's
there,
manpower,
so I'd like
too.
to pull that out of it. just
One
to-
new position for the water.
Two.
Two.
Yeah.
Oh, two water maintenance.
Yeah.
Listen, we need to set a standard that all changes to the org chart need to be
Fully
have a
vetted
justification.
And approved.
Okay.
Everything else okay up there, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Of the proposed budget for the other funds, so we do have special revenue funds. So we do have a total proposed budget as some operating expenditures and capital of about 2 million, 2.1 million. And there is plenty of fund balance to accommodate these. And most of these are grant-related projects. If you have any, give you a couple of quick glimpses of state gas tax that's done for slurry seal on an annual basis. Measure R is used to fill the funding gaps of the gas tax. I don't know if you have any specific questions in any of these other special revenue sources.
This is informational. These are all projected revenues in these special funds for next year.
We love it.
There's not a decision to be made.
Service fund and the enterprise fund. So the debt service fund is the Douglas Gap Closure Project. Has an annual debt service payment of about just under $550,000 a year, and there's plenty of fund balance, about 1.4 million. So even though we're only projecting 125,000 traffic mitigation fees, we do have plenty of fund balance to accommodate the debt service payment. And then we have we did have water and wastewater increases that were effective July 1st. That is reflected in these projections for the revenues. And again, plenty of fund balance to accommodate budgets. The golf course, I just want to point out, is there reflecting a negative fund balance. And that's really due to a loan of $5.7 million that the golf course does have payable to the equipment replacement fund operation. And I did put in here actuals for 13-14 and 14-15 for the golf course, revenues and expenditures, and net result, and the proposed 16-17 budget. So there are fluctuations, even going back prior to 13-14. There are some years where it's had a deficit of about 100 to 200,000, or a positive result.
So on the golf course fund, if and when we move to the Top Golf facility, are we going to put money into the golf course in anticipation of the development, so that we're not just throwing money away?
The hope with the Topgolf agreement and development would be that it would generate revenues back to the replacement fund, the loan, and also put dollars into its own capital savings account, and that the project would have the indirect effect through, well, direct and indirect effect through business licenses and other taxes and other spending of also benefiting the general fund.
No, I just don't want to spend money on the golf course if we're going to be making changes to it.
And we're very aware of that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have a clear cutoff to investment in the golf course.
And we're going to always have the golf course. So, but I saw one of your notes in the budget that some of the accounting for the golf course fund included depreciation against cash, and that the golf course has been given. Have we gone back and restated that in previous years to see how the accounting for the golf course has been without depreciation?
Sure. So depreciation has been included as an expenditure item, not assets that are on the books. So
in the accounting process, I think that's part of the debt. It was money that was taken out of the debt service, and I don't think that's not appropriate. I don't believe, and I think previous years, or have we?
No, we haven't had time yet with the new finance manager on board. That particular project with some other projects will be a task in the near future for him.
We need to audit that to see what that was. So, okay, thank you.
Quick question, Joe, on the, no.
So there is no debt service budgeted for 16-17. If you look at, let me go back. here on the proposed budget. So right now, expenditures are proposed to exceed revenues to apply towards paying that payment this year.
Is there not a debt schedule, or is it just pay as you can?
I believe it's pay as you can, and the last payment that was made
The
was
debt's been
in.
paid off. This is essentially an internal loan from the city.
5.7 million.
Right. We should have a debt schedule that maybe we can revisit sometime in 16, 17. The last payment was made in 2014 for about 40,000, and prior to that in 2013 for 200,000, and nothing.
So could just on this, on the golf course, then why are we anticipating? Wait, the revenue's dropping by close to 60,000.
Is anticipated to be 75,000 less, and the golf course revenue to be 50,000 less.
So what, and what's driving those reductions?
It's been dropping. I think the reports I showed, Mike, that's accurate, isn't it?
So it's taking the trend of the current year and projecting that out.
I don't know.
Okay, any further questions? So the next steps are bringing the proposed budget back on September 20th and return on September 28th for a special meeting for the adoption of the budget. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Take too long.
Thank you to staff for bearing through that. Sorry about that.
Special meeting. That's a 5 o'clock meeting on the 28th.
Yes, sir.
Item number, Cable Advisory Committee, and possibly combine it with another established commission or committee. Fiscal impact, none. City Manager?
This is a request that was made by, came up as part of a discussion of forming another commission and board, and staff cable commission could potentially go. The staff recommendation would be that it be consolidated with the now forming arts committee.
So since we've asked every other commission chair what he or she recommends.
Yes, we have. Meredith, do you want to provide any additional information?
I thought this report by Dan O'Toole
here tonight if you have any additional questions, but currently we only have 2 active sitting members on this cable committee that has 5 seats. Both have been in conversations with Dan, and both are in support of moving this commission to the
Serve?
I believe there is definitely interest from one of the members, and the other one is unsure at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
They wouldn't automatically get to shift over to the new committee, I wouldn't think. Those unusual circumstances.
Are you saying they would or would not?
Would not.
Would not?
But I think we need to factor this.
Interested in serving. So again, out of respect, they're already current commission member or committee members.
That they should interview. Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm.
Yes, or at least interview them.
Sounds good.
So, city manager, you will have them apply?
Staff will contact the 2 current members of the Cable Commission and advise them that if they want to continue to serve, they should file applications for the...
Approve dissolving it,
Yeah.
that we encourage them to apply, not just that they should, that we want them to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
I move approval of the staff's recommendation to dissolve the Community Arts and Culture.
I'll second it.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Item 4, consideration and possible action to form a subcommittee to study alternatives and develop a recommendation for late second-story additions and new 2-story homes in the R1 zone. Fiscal impact, none.
Mayor and members of council, you gave staff the assignment of working with the Planning Commission to look at some of the R1 standards. Sam Lee and his staff report that they would prefer to form a subcommittee actually a task force, I guess, a subcommittee of planning commissioners and a task force of stakeholders, contractors, and architects, and work on this further. And Sam, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not. So this is really just an update request. They want to take more time and work with more people in the community. And do we have an estimated timeline?
December, we think December.
By the prior council back in April, and it's
March.
now September, and we have nothing. I'm not satisfied with the turnaround time. This was something that was a high priority, and it's nothing in front of us. So I'm a little bit frustrated that now we're asking for a subcommittee or a task force to look at it when this should have been done. This should have been come to us 3 months ago. So I don't know about.
How's this committee going to be formed now?
With stakeholders for the task force and planning commissioners for the subcommittee?
I know that Carol and I purchased force.
Yeah, it'll be very similar. I think the planning commissioners felt that went really well. So at the last planning commission meeting in August, we presented them with the various different options, studying various different cities and what other cities have done. And they listened, and I think specifically they wanted to achieve two things. They wanted to make sure that they wanted the input from the public. So they asked us to reach out in social media, go out to the farmers market, get surveys done. The element is that they really wanted to engage the major stakeholders, and they found that I think they wanted to engage further with the architects, the developers, the engineers, and have that discussion, very much like the downtown subcommittee, which the results will be coming at the next. That's why they asked me to ask you to, if it's okay to create a subcommittee. Hopefully we won't take too long, and maybe we'll hurry through and maybe get something to you in November.
Well, I think you need to take the time you do, and I have a different, proceeded in May, and that was 3 months ago, and you've already done several things, and the Planning Commission asked for additional information. So this is municipal government, and I think that it's reasonable, and I appreciate you coming back with this.
Voted unanimously to request that the city council create a subcommittee. So we're supposed to have an item to create this, and they want to have an architect on it, developer, structural engineer, et cetera. So we need to name.
You can ask us to work with the planning commission to come up with our own subcommittee. I think that's what we did for the downtown subcommittee.
Right.
Or you can be directly involved in appointing your subcommittee yourselves. It's really up to you.
It's to form a subcommittee and
Wants us to
bring it to
form one.
us to approve it. I'm fine with that. What did you say, Mike?
And they want us to form one, I think is what.
Yeah. We're busy doing other committees, right?
To this
Yeah.
project, and this was a high priority, and
The city moved.
it's
the
been
city
5
moved
months, and we have.
slow, and
It's been 3 months since the new council was seated. It's
Yeah,
just
but this
first
was
year.
approved before us by a previous council, so
But right before.
no,
Council
I
to be
disagree.
seated.
The team, the staff does not stop for an election. This was given to them back in April. So I'm really, what do we recommend?
If speed is of the essence, I would suggest, I think we're close with the planning commission. I think they just want to speak to the stakeholders a little bit. If you can leave it up to us and to have the planning commissioner approve a subcommittee, I think that will be faster than committee approved and whatnot.
Can they approve it, or do they have to make recommendations to us to approve?
It'll be a recommendation.
Okay.
But they'll form the subcommittee, listen to what they'll have to say. They'll conclude what their recommendation to you.
Pardon?
Should we link up with them, somebody on the council represent?
Sure. We have two members on the subcommittee.
I'll do it.
Any other volunteers?
Right
Member
now,
Perstek's
so
very
I'm gonna
engaged
pass.
in this, and she would like to
Carol,
be the second
yes, I
subcommittee.
vote for Carol.
We don't need two, I'll do it. I'll do it.
I'll be an alternate.
Right.
All right.
So,
Add me to it, Sam.
Sam, please tell the planning commission.
They got to deal with
We look forward to their recommendations. Thank you. So it's asking us to create a subcommittee, but we're not creating it. We're giving them the authority to, are we good with that, City Attorney?
So you want the membership to come back for approval, or the recommendations of the task force and the planning commission for the
Members.
changes to the code to come back for
Oh,
approval?
no, I thought it was the members of the subcommittee we have to approve.
You don't have concern for the amount of time that's taken, that maybe we skip that step.
Okay. Item number 5, consideration and possible action to announce the appointments to the Planning Commission Corporation. And once again, we held interviews over several weeks, and El Segundo is blessed with incredible people who want to serve our city, and it's always a very difficult decision. So Ryan Baldino and Brenda Newman were both appointed to terms expiring June 30th, 2020. So congratulations to the new commissioners. The Library Board of Trustees, we appointed June 30th, 2019. Congratulations to her. The Senior Housing Corporation Board, we appointed Martin Stone and Patricia Gerber to full terms expiring June 30th, 2020. Congratulations. Appointed Christy Zeman to a partial term expiring June 30th, 2019, and Caroline Hawks to a full term expiring June 30th, 2020. So congratulations to them, and thank you to these people. Consent agenda, any polls?
Staff would like to
12.
clarify item 17.
Okay.
I'd like to pull item 12.
Any other polls? So no other polls. Do I have a motion to approve items 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16? Opposed, 5-0. Thank you. Item 10, Councilmember Brand.
Yeah, is this the same location as in past years for the operation of beer garden?
Can you read the item, please?
The El Segundo Kiwanis Club to operate a beer garden on public right-of-way at the 40th Annual Richmond Street Fair on Saturday, September 24th, 2016. So my question is the location changing? And second question, what happens with the proceeds from the beer garden? Is there a designated?
So,
Mike, yeah.
well, we have a couple members of Kiwanis, from Kiwanis in the crowd here, so if you want them to answer that, I don't know if you're ready to answer. I believe the answer is it's in the same location as it's always been, so location isn't a change. General fund thing to Kiwanis, and Kiwanis supports the children of the community, so the money goes back into youth programs, it goes into youth scholarships, and that's what Kiwanis does with it.
And
So-
Kiwanis just donated $15,000 to the Ed Foundation to fund SHIP, as well as a inclusivity program at the El Segundo Middle School that was very highly received and really helped the sixth graders immerse themselves into the middle school this year.
And each year it might be a different cause.
There are probably, a dozen causes, if not more, Mike, every given year that Kiwanis allocates funds to, everything from Little League to you name it. There's many different things that the Kiwanis funds. Just like Rotary has their movies in the park where they serve beer and wine, much bigger venue for them, much bigger events at Kiwanis.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't ever support serving alcohol on public places, and it's in our code not to, so I won't be supporting.
Is this the only time of the year that we have a beer garden or something on public property, or is that related to the Richmond Street Fair?
Well, this is the Richmond Street
Well, I
Fair. You
mean-
mean the hometown
I
fair?
mean the hometown
No,
fair.
there's no alcohol at the hometown fair. There was one year.
We've done it before, it's been done there before, so, a couple times. So. You gonna approve number 10? Don, you have a motion or anything, or
Yeah, I move approval of number 10.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Or one.
Thanks for the information.
Award a standard public works contract to Cana Subsurface Engineering for the water meter replacement project in commercial area, project number, Public Works 16-04. You know, I'm looking at this one and the fixed, and this is one where on the surface you say, okay, we need to have current water meters. These are smart meters. They'll be able to be read on a, I guess, on a Wi-Fi network or whatever. But when you look associated with this, so stepping back and taking the surface of this, when you look at it and say, okay, there's roughly $1.2 million. We're going to spend $3,000 per meter to replace them, and we really don't get a heck of a lot for that. And I'm just wondering, we'll have more information about our water system, but we really don't improve the service or delivery to the consumers. And 1.3 or $1.2 million is a lot of money. So I question, when we're going to spend 1.2 million to replace a bunch of meters because we're headed in a direction or we want to do that. And
We had the report a couple of months ago from the guy about this.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
I don't think you're.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought that there was some kind of, Mike, meter reading savings that the department would experience. I
And
don't know.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
give us more information. And does this come out of the enterprise funds?
Yes, this fund the conversion to the automatic meter reading system and how many man days that saves every month as we go through. And if you recall, our commercial sector uses by far the most man days for their commercial meters. All of our meters have a shelf life for these, please, 7 to 10 years. I don't have the exact number tonight, but many of these meters are going to be due for replacement anyways. And the ones that aren't due for replacement immediately will be due for replacement in the near future. So we're advancing that a little bit to roll out the whole AM meters. And the meters for the commercial section range not just $3,000, some of them are $30,000 or $40,000 because they're 8, 10, 12-inch meters. Where you'll really see the cost reduction is in the residential meters, but we're not to that phase yet.
Can't take those enterprise funds and shift them over to the general fund because we need some stuff over there. I mean,
I will
people
say
don't
that,
understand that.
I will say that even though these are water meters, this is actually a joint because the sewer enterprise relies on the water meters to utilize their billing, so the functionality is dual. And in terms of the benefit that we'll provide to residents, we will move forward with the ability to help people say, my numbers have spiked, can you tell me why? And we can provide them information that helps them correlate back, or we can actually help them plan more smartly moving forward. In the AMR program. So it's going to have a lot of the water conservation efforts that are underway now. This definitely moves us in the right direction.
Thank
And lastly, our commercial industrial meters, they use about 80% of our water.
One consumer probably uses that. Chevron, yeah.
They use reclaimed water.
And regular. So I guess, my concern is we're paying a lot of money here for infrastructure improvement. We're going to maintain an infrastructure here. So we're billing for a commodity and we're going to spend $1 million to know more about the billing on the commodity here. So that's something that, this is the kind of a scope of money like this is how much money are we going to be saving by expending this $1.2 million? And does that reduce, because they're network live, are we expecting potential reduction in manpower, reduction in cost for get these out here? If I'm going to spend a lot of money on putting in automatic meters, what does that do to my staffing? And then I question, because what I see is, and I'm going to speculate a little of this, I apologize for that, but here we have a fighting for how to split that up and put it across the city, and everybody's trying to buy more people and stuff, and here we got something where we're putting technology in place that potentially could reduce some of our manpower needs, and I don't see anybody taking any credit for that in anywhere in our budgets going forward. So I'm not saying no to the project, but have we fully understood what is this going to do for us? $1.2 million for information is a lot of money, and I'm not, that's kind of how I see it at this point, to be honest with you.
Okay, I want to recap that this is not just $1.2 million for information. Many of these meters are due for that money. Either way, when we replace meters, we have to replace them to maintain accuracy. They slow down as they age, and as they slow down, people use water that they're not paying for because we're not capturing it.
Okay, that's a theory, but so the question is, when we pull meters out, how are calibrated and checked, and what's it take to calibrate and check a meter and swap a few out, as opposed to a uniform replacement, which this is. That, deferred maintenance is a science that, if done properly, can be a money saver and free funds up for other things. So,
Yes, we've looked at it. There are, again, I don't have the number at the top of my head, but there are meters that are due for replacement now. In terms of your staffing issue, we actually will be saving staff hours now that will be utilized for other things, as we mentioned. And in terms of just a straight workload week, which I'll be presenting on the 20th, I've actually run all of those numbers. Within the 3-year rollout of this plan, we will no longer need the meter reader position that we have today. So we will be reducing staff as we go on.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And can this money be used for anything else, or it has to be used for,
Enterprise.
it has
it
to
has to
be,
be used for this? Okay.
no, that's okay. I'll pass on this one. Somebody else can move to approve it, so.
I want to move the approval of the standard public works contract with Kiwanis Subsurface Engineering for the water, about $3,000 between 1 and 2. I move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-1. Adopted, but hold it, you're not going to, you're going to explain what, sorry. I thought you said you were coming back for it.
No, we
The
need to,
meeting.
we need to clarify what's going on
Oh.
with 17.
Sorry, when you told me.
The end result is the same as the staff report recommendation, but I need to do some cleanup language. I had written in the staff report that I would like to move approval of the fire station roofing and decline the award for the police station roofing. Technically speaking, we're eliminating the police station roofing bid. So the overall low bid goes to the low bidder with an approved change order to eliminate one of the 2 items, which is the police roof.
What was that?
The
Public
gentleman-
comment
That
permit,
guy who
yeah.
spoke and
I spoke with him on the side. It does not relate to this specific item. The vendor that he mentioned is not the one that we're recommending award to.
so it was one of the vendors who bid, but he didn't know where they stood.
Apparently, for the recommendation, and that is not who he referenced.
Okay. We went to a lot of trouble to not know that.
So do I have a motion to approve?
Can I ask a real quick question? Sorry, Steph. The budget we saw showed 400 grand roughly for the police roof.
Plus a contingency would get us to about the 600.
Oh, so there's 400 plus there's already set aside of a couple $100,000?
200 that was recommended for set aside by the fire department 3 years ago was based on doing repair, and it's in need of a replacement. So that's the discrepancy over the original 200.
Thank you.
And then you're going to come back and pull the police?
I'm sorry?
The repair of
The
the,
repairs in the
Just how to
police?
go
The
about
repair
it.
system, so if you'll recall, this is actually the second bid. The first police bid, we only received 2 bidders. The prices were very high. We rejected that. We went back to the bidders and said, what about this particular bid resulted in our bidding documents based on that with the hopes of bringing it down more substantially. And then these new bids came in, and they're not the kind of reduction that we'd like to see. So we've reached out, as the staff report mentioned, to another vendor to say, could I get a Goodyear tire, and will I get the same performance? And so they've helped us refocus some of our efforts that should bring down the cost. We're estimating at least $70,000. So we'd like to take the extra time to really vet that again.
Police roof,
Yes.
police station roof, we're just trying to make sure we're doing the best way we can.
We'd like to get the best product for the best price. And we don't feel like we're quite there based on the the product that we've specified to date, which has been the standard product, closer look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, city attorney, we might need some help on how to form this motion. She presented a couple of alternatives, I think.
It's listed in there to approve the one and reject the others, so.
It's actually, you're going to be awarding the contract for the fire station and for have to issue a change order to delete the fire station roof.
Okay.
Police
Police station.
Yeah. Okay.
So was that your motion, Councilmember Brand?
Yeah, that's my motion, and he can write it up.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. I'm sorry, City Manager, when we spoke earlier, I thought you meant it was coming back next week. So, new business. Consideration and possible action to adopt the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Authority's proposed transportation ballot measure, Measure M, to be voted on this November by Los Angeles County voters. City Manager?
Mayor, members of council, the very summary version of this is that I believe, and we potentially would support a tax measure that improved them. We're not happy with this tax measure and the way it's put together. We feel that it unfairly treats El Segundo and that we are getting back for the improvement based on the methodology. Stephanie Katsoulias and I know the mayor has been very involved in speaking to try to make changes to this before it was officially adopted by the county supervisors. We've been in getting that change made, we've been asked by the South Bay COG to take a position in support of the COG's position to oppose this measure and to ask the voters to reject it and potentially come back to us a more equitable policy for allocating these funds. And Stephanie can answer more detailed questions, but that's the summary version.
I'd like to add that our region is referred to as a donor region because, and one of the things that they use to base the projects on is population, and as everybody knows, our nighttime population is about 16.7, and our daytime population is 70,000, and they won't take that into consideration. There were Kanabi who supported us and went to the board, and they wouldn't hear him out, and they voted against it, and the South Bay City COG opposed it, and the Gateway Cities COG also opposed it, and certainly Mayor Garcetti has reached out to me to lunch downtown a week or so ago to talk about it, and he did not change anybody's stance on this. It's a wrong measure. Like you said, we support transportation, but not this measure.
So in addition to that, they filed a suit against this measure. And this isn't including us in that. This is just a resolution opposing it. We don't join in Carson or the Gateway City suit.
No, this is several weeks ago.
Yeah,
You know,
that's good.
different cities are doing it as they have council meetings opposing it.
Yeah, I went to the COG meeting one morning and Assembly Member Hadley opposes this also. It's across the COG. Yeah. Good.
Not serve our region, so yep. A motion to
I make a
Adopt a
motion to adopt a resolution in opposition to the transportation ballot measure.
I'll second.
in favor of opposing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. And thank you, council. Reports. City manager.
I will pass.
City clerk.
Following suit.
City treasurer is not here. Councilmember Brand.
Just quickly, I also want to thank all of the folks who've stepped up and applied for city commissions and committees. It's been a goal of involving more people in the work of the city, so really appreciate everybody who's come forward. Sorry we didn't have spots for everybody, but we added some spots through adding 2 new committees. Also, school districts, El Segundo High School, because if you saw the release last week of the Smarter Balanced test score results. These were the second year of the administration of the test. In the spring of 2016, it's English language arts scores from 67% to 70%. Manhattan Beach was at 75, just to put it in perspective. So they're moving in the right direction.
Member Perstuck?
I just want to thank or welcome the Lakers and the UCLA, their partners, to El Segundo. Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and I were able to attend the press conference. And
Councilmember Dugan?
Pass.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyles?
Nothing, thank you.
Oh, I have a lot of things. As Councilmember Perstuck said, there was a press conference last week for the Los Angeles Lakers and the UCLA Segundo. We're grateful to both of them for investing in our city. Thank you, Councilmember Brand, for attending the Sanitation District meeting for me. When I couldn't go, the Downtown Car Show was a wonderful success. That was the Chamber, the Automobile West Defense Alliance Multi-State Summit Conference in San Diego last week. It was a very good conference. It's the 6 southwestern states that get together and talk about how we maintain the capabilities in the military. You know, Los Angeles Air Force Base is very important, and a job provider in the South Bay, the jobs engine of the South Bay. I was asked last week to attend the National Women's Political Caucus. That was women Sanchez, Waters, Napolitano, and Hahn were there, as well as Treasurer Chang and Controller Betty Yee, and it was really wonderful to have them all here in El Segundo. I got to tell them about how business-friendly we are and all the really wonderful to right all the wrongs that the state of California does to make business unfriendly. Yeah, and pardon? Yes. Well, and also, last week, the Mayor Pro Tem and the City Manager and I had the opportunity, the lawsuit that we have against them right now. So I think that was a very good meeting. It was very productive. So with that, go back to public communications related to city business only. Well,
there is no one here.
oh, okay.
I'm big fun.
Okay. And we have no memorials tonight, so we are adjourned 10:55.